Oh, how I love the smell of industrialization in the morning. Nothing like some greed-fueled capitalism, fueled by water and lava, which we'll be exploring in great depth, no pun intended, in Hydroneer, 200 days, the movie SUPERCUT, batteries not included.
Yeah! The rumbles of war have begun. Hans, get the Flammenwerfer.
That's right, the two originals blended together with some extra animations and edits. So say it with me now. Let the show begin! Here we are, on day one. After making an absolute dashing specimen of a man, we hop on in, and before I knew it, I was standing in a town called Ember Cradle. All I could tell was that there were plenty of shops, that you have to buy your own tools, and also that this game isn't very big on tutorials. The sun was setting quickly and I had no idea what I should be doing, but I did manage to find a brush, so I guess that's a start. While my dumb was busy finding out how to use a pan and brush to get some ore, I found a map. Turns out the island we are on is called Bastion, and it has multiple quarries. This is also where I noticed the item description pop up and found out that I need some dirt to use in a pan and brush, so I'm off to find a shovel. And I did find one at this dude's shop, but apparently, although theft being a crime here doesn't really get you punished, it's just kind of weird, a dude just screams at you. So I went looking around town, where I managed to wander into a cave with an odd ritual spot. Must require some special items on these here pedestals, but we'll be back for this eventually. While I was walking through town, one of the villagers gave me an item requisition, but buddy, I don't even know how to get dirt, let alone gems and gold. Far and wide I searched for the elusive shovel going into day 2, but eventually I circled back to square one, where there was a shovel waiting for me this whole time. My bad, I guess I'm just illegally blind, and this shovel here allowed me to get my first bit of dirt, which washed down with the pan, got us a first bit of gold. Our road to riches has thus begun. It took me quite a long time to find out how to interact with the shops, but all you gotta do is drop your possessions onto the table to get you some coin. This coin netted me a worth of 7, but I need 100 for the starter pickaxe, so I slaved the day away to get some more ores, and I came across some iron eventually. Slowly but surely, the wagon was being filled up, which I carried all the way on over to the market to make some quick buckaroonies. While selling this new haul, I did notice that different pieces of ore go for different prices based on their weight. Later, as the sun was setting, I did find a mysterious glowing shard, which supposedly helps power pressure tanks, so I'll hold on to that as I don't know how rare this is. Another haul later got sold, so we're making that cash money quick, so much so that we went to buy our first pickaxe. We are going places, and those places are the mines. Might as well test it out at the quarry that I have access to. It lets you dig super fast, however, it's super dark down here. So Papa is going to need a light source, and there were a lot of useful tools to start building a base, but again, I'm still broke. So on day 3, I attempted to remedy this issue by grinding out ore to sell. During this grind, I managed to make some interesting finds, being an uncut emerald, very nice, some core stone ore, and a piece of cloutium ore. No idea what I could use these for, but I'm sure together we'll figure that out in time. At sundown, I put my bucket on my wagon and sold all of my golden iron that I got from the day to get myself a standing torch, a grinding wheel, and a construction hammer. And you know, the next morning, as I was transporting my stuff, I noticed my wagon was just overflowing with items, so I think it's time we build that base. I unloaded everything at my selected spot, where the standing torch, ironically, did not want to do the standing part. I guess it'll have to do on the floor for now. I couldn't quite figure out what to do with the hammer though. All I did after that was set down my grinding wheel and turn my uncut emeralds into their pure shiny form. More time was spent gathering ore for funds, during which I found an uncut sapphire. I can tell that this game is going to want me to make a lot of jewelry. The extra cash let me buy the saw, and I figured out that it's not used to cut down trees, surprisingly, or used on wood in any way, shape, or form. It's meant for cutting metal bars in half, oddly enough. Stumped on what to do next, I just started to dig a hole in the dirt. I reached solid ground and couldn't dig any further down, so I'm guessing I might need better tools down the line. As the sun was setting again, all I could think of was that I'm going to need to build a rudimentary furnace station for sure, since it'll allow me to make bars. So you know what that means? Sifting through more dirt. Yeah, buddy, I spent all night panning, during which I found out that my emeralds and sapphires had mysteriously disappeared. There's a thief in our midst, I just know it. This grind lasted for the majority of day 5, and I also snatched up an uncut ruby, which I processed and placed at base for safekeeping. Hopefully the thief doesn't get this one too. Cause honestly, I have to deal with enough tomfoolery and mischief over on The Nest, a group channel by natural causes, chaotic gaming, and yours truly.
Yep. Point. This was the one time.
Can't Crow make it? Oh!
No! I mean, it's not even flipped. It's all fine.
Crow, stand over here and press control.
Control.
Okay. Crowmeda.
For this to literally be the foot we start off on is very fucking telling.
We all want to thank you for the insane support over there. The channel has grown like crazy, and we got so many exciting series coming up that I'd be doing y'all a disservice for not bringing this channel to your attention. So enjoy all the rage-fueled bickering and neuron-destroying chaos over on the Nest. Links are down below. I just worked relentlessly to get enough ores to sell, since the jeweler lady, who we shall call Julie, drives a hard bargain. And I'm really going to need to automate this whole mining operation because my hands be hurtin'. I'm gonna get carpal tunnel from this for sure. At about noon, I was able to buy every single smithing item at the vendor and began to haul everything back to base. I then got some gold and iron harvested and decided to throw some into the crucible to make some ingots, which I tried to use on this here anvil to craft items as I was sifting through the recipes, and I grasped the concept but couldn't quite figure it out just yet. But that didn't stop me from trying all different combinations going into day 6 until I figured out that I needed to heat up the bars to create stuff. I mean, duh.
Haha! Eureka! Weaponry is mine.
Not knowing what to do with my new shiny pointy stabby stick, I went on a search for someone to sell it to and stumbled upon a statue in the name of my new scriptwriter.
Raptor, did you die here? Did you die here?
I guess. My soul is there, trust me.
The stabby stick was sold to Julie, and then I scurried back to base with my coin like the little goblin that I am. After that, I built the biggest piece of jewelry that I could muster with a big ruby on it, and that only gave me 40 Hydroneer coin, which feels like a ripoff. Julie, you're gonna pay for this. Lastly, the only other thing that I could make was an iron axe and an emerald ring. These surely would bring me a better price. On my way up to Julie though, I noticed a giant volcano in the distance. Hopefully we get to explore that sometime soon. With those new acquired funds, I decided to buy a fishing pole and a crab pot, which I hauled on over to the nearest dock, where I struggled to find a deep enough part to put the pot in, so we'll put that on a hold. At least the fishing pole seemed to be working just fine. I did catch a sardine and sold it for a whopping 4H. Not much money in this fishing business, I suppose. I also caught a cod, but couldn't figure out where to sell it to, so I would put a hold on this for now as well. Curiosity got the better of me as I set off on an adventure to kick off day 7, without knowing what awaited me out there. If it was danger, I'd welcome it. I came across a quaint Viking-style village. Although vacant, its stock market had a way better price for weaponry, so we now know where to sell those. I returned back to base, placed my crab pot under my little bridge, and got to work on gathering iron, and ended up crafting one of each iron weapon. I transported them to the Viking village, where I sold them for a grand sum of 46 coins. This dramatically influenced the demand price though, as I had offered all 3 at the same time, seems like. The little bit of money that I did have, I spent on concrete blocks and used them to build a flat surface to put our assembly on. Progression-wise, we do need to save up for some of these larger automated machines that are powered by water pressure. The game is called Hydroneer after all. So against my better judgment, I decided to collect my gold bars and sold them to Julie. This sadly only gave me 70 coins. This lady is going to drive me insane. With that money, I decided to buy some pipes, and thus on day 8 after placing them, we had flowing water. I then made a quick 86 coins, selling iron bars at the local stock market, and then during today's money grind, I managed to find a herring in the crab pot, so I'll be sure to keep track of the different species of fish that we find. After tons of more grinding, I sold a whole bunch of bars and gems for 216 coins, so I was finally able to afford a forged iron harvester and hooked it up to our water pipes. This machine lets me skip the washing and brushing step of the panning. As for the fish caught by the cage so far, we got a cod, a herring, a flying fish, a prawn, and an old stanky boot. At the fisher village, I traded a prawn for a slightly better fishing rod, so our side quest to collect them all is going smoothly. As for the remaining fish, I found out I can just sell them to the grocer. It was on day 9 that we put our new piece of machinery to work by shoveling truckloads of dirt into it for processing. During this grind, I ended up making a shard bar, but Julie says it's apparently worth jack shit, so I'll hold on to it for myself. It must be useful if I can't sell it. I then continued to sift through pan after pan after pan after pan of dirt, and I did get more efficient at it though, digging on the other side of the river and using a block to get up to feed the machine. By sundown, I had an absolutely massive pile of ore and started to make a chunky gold ingot and a thick iron bar. These two items were worth a whopping 381 coins. Julie, you are finally speaking my language. With that coin, I was able to buy the remaining tubing and decided to start rerouting my system back at base. And things seem to be looking well as I figured out I can put the shard bar into the pressure tube and had enough room for another machine. Efficiency was slowly catching on day 10 as we built a platform with a bucket to catch our ores. 50% of the time, it works 100% of the time. For the majority of the day, I repeated the same money-making system as the day prior, and with another massive amount of cash, I managed to buy and set a forged iron drill down. It just pumps out dirt like there's no tomorrow. I mean, just look at it go. I can't even keep up with it, and this is only tier 1. The remainder of the evening was spent perfecting this section of our system, and I quickly came to realize, since it's spitting out dirt chunks, we need to route it in a way that would allow the chunks to fall into the top of the harvester. And although my contraption that I whipped up should have worked, it did not, likely because this drill isn't meant to drill air. Day 11 was, well, not the most thrilling chapter in our epic saga. Armed with my very limited brain power, I decided it was time for a much-needed overhaul. I made a lot of purchases for this project, some wise, others questionable. Progress was happening, but we're not quite there yet. Still, somewhere deep in the rusty gears of my mind, there was a spark, a tiny flicker of an idea. Let's see where this takes us.
Oh, it works! It works! Suck it! I knew I had a good idea.
Yes, my lovelies, automation has been achieved. We have beaten the game. Not really, but you get the point. You know, hey, the pipes were flowing, the machines are humming, and things are kind of working. Now comes the tricky part though, figuring out how to catch all of these shiny little nuggets and sort them into neat little piles. After some intense staring at the mess that I created, I decided it was time to invest in a hand sorter, because clearly my hands alone aren't cutting it. Fortunately, funding isn't an issue anymore, thanks to the mountain of nuggets that we've stockpiled from all of our totally scientific testing. On day 13, we integrated the hand sorter and powered it up with good old-fashioned water. Sure, it might not be the approved method, but hey, it's working wonders for easy collection. Our contraption is up and running, and it's already making us richer than we ever dreamed of. And naturally, I took that as a cue to expand the hole for more building. After all, we need our loot properly sorted. Once we forged the mother of all bars, construction raged on through the night like there was no tomorrow.
Damn, son, where'd you find this? Holy moly.
I got the goods if you got the cash.
You better have a lot of goods, my boy, because I got a lot of cash. What can I say? Rerouting everything and using my brain, for once, turned out to be a solid plan. We were basking in eureka moments until we noticed some wear and tear on the drill. Turns out even the best contraptions need a little TLC now and then. So it was time to cough up a few more nuggets for repairs before diving back in. So the next day, I bought myself a spanner and got everything back in working order. While I'm gathering funds for more building projects, I just have to say, this game is incredibly satisfying. Other games might give you a quick rush from high value drops, but here, it's all about the pride of seeing what you've built come to life. I picked up another sorter and started installing this one too, but sometimes my brain decides it's had enough.
Oh, I misclicked. Oh, no. Oh, I'm gonna cry myself to sleep.
Fortunately, by the end of the day, we were making progress towards the perfect system. In the early hours of day 15, I painstakingly cleaned up my entire mess, piece by piece. But I didn't mind one bit actually, because the payoff was massive. Huge bars, practically gargantuan.
Julie, I've come for your retirement fund. Oh, it's over 1,000. Oh man, that is beautiful. Juicy.
At this point in time, money was definitely off the worry list, and the wild part is that I haven't even hit peak efficiency yet. Once daytime arrived, I cranked my sorting operation into overdrive, and I'll admit, I felt pretty proud seeing everything come together. Granted, the gem filter isn't exactly dancing in perfect harmony, but that's alright for now. My plan is to funnel gold and iron straight into their respective cauldrons for smelting, because if there's one thing I don't need, it's another sorting headache. Little by little, I cobbled together a rudimentary gem system, and by the end of the day, the camp was neat, tidy, and chugging along like a dream. Day 16 kicked off with me buying another furnace and crucible, then I spent way too long trying to rig an auto smelt system. Turns out I was just overthinking it.
Haha! Bucket was the answer all along.
Up next, I repeated the process for golds, and I'll admit that the gold dispenser on this hatch is much easier to work with, so that's a win in my book. I let the whole setup run for a while just to see how much loot I could churn out in one go. During the downtime, I busied myself tidying up the place. By sundown, I shut everything off, collected my freshly minted ingots, and trekked on over to Julie's. The payoff was a hefty 3,229 coin, bringing our total haul to a solid 4,875. It's enough to make me want to tear up. Like, seriously, who knew that molten metal could make me so emotional? And you know, maybe it's time to invest that hard-earned cash into a tractor for some amazing transport capabilities. If only I could figure out the darn price. The next day kicked off with a good long stare at my map. Turns out the Viking village we visited is called Hydroneer, and the castle's Bastion keep, and that fishing hub is Burnscroft. While I was tinkering with my machinery, the salesman casually mentioned that I could find even more goodies at a place called Icehelm. Naturally, I loaded up my wagon and headed off into uncharted territory. Uncharted territory for me, that is, because it's definitely marked on the map, don't you worry. We passed Hydroneer in no time and soon found ourselves scaling a snowy mountain dotted with abandoned structures. Eventually, I reached what looked like my destination, an old wrecked settlement that's seen better days. A massive gateway led me into the mountain itself, complete with a gemstone stock market and even stone structures for building a proper house. Inside the gateway sat a big elevator. I descended with it, and let me tell you, the room below gave off some serious Lord of the Rings meets Elven Kingdom vibes. At the end of this grand entrance, there was a colossal anvil and a dude.
Need something specific.
You know what? I don't know what I expected, but I thought whatever you would want would refer to, you know, the elephant in the room.
Sure, the walls had signs supposedly explaining on how to use this mystical contraption, but I can't lie, I'm way too dense to piece that together right now. Further in, I spotted a labeled pathway which led me to a shop featuring conveyor belts and hooks for processing, funnels, smelters, and all sorts of knickknacks to jazz up your base. There was also Cloutium tubing, fancy new tools, and specialized machine designs that seemed unique to this area. According to everything that I read, the ore tiers here go from iron to Cloutium to corestone in that order. All that, however, pales in comparison to the scale that I stumbled upon. It will help me handle orders down to the exact weight. Super handy when you're rolling in valuables. Deeper in, I crossed an old wooden bridge overflowing with lava. Definitely not up to code. And then noticed a huge chute, and it seems like you can transport items throughout this entire cavern system. Honestly, this feels like one gigantic puzzle waiting to be solved. On day 18, I hauled my entire pile of cash over to the mountain shop, where I basically went on a shopping spree. I snagged a ton of merchandise, most importantly though, all the shiny new tools. I had bought so many items that I had to use my wagon to haul everything back to the surface, and somehow I managed to cram everything inside and then headed back home. While unloading my freshly bought gear, I discovered the magnifying glass can actually show machines' durability, and the magnet on a stick lets me pull items from a distance, incredibly handy. After earning another nice payout from Julie, I decided to make a second trip all the way to Icehelm to buy some stone construction pieces, and then back home the rake proved invaluable for leveling the ground and laying solid foundations for our new house. By the time night fell, most things were in place, and I was gearing up for purchasing round 2. This time, roof pieces. As I ventured off, one thought kept echoing in my head. I really need me a tractor. A good old green John Deere would be just fine. At dawn of the next day, I slapped on the roof and made one final run for the remaining walls, and just like that, our stone house was complete. A perfect spot for all of my fine-tuning tasks, like measuring out the exact weight of new items. I had been so caught up in building that I didn't even notice our gemstone stash was overflowing. A problem I'm totally okay with, by the way. So I spent some time cleaning up the sparkly mess. With our facilities upgraded, I stopped by Edgar's place, and turns out he wants a 1.5 gold nugget, which is tricky considering I've got nothing but cold hard coin, and you can't split and divide nugget weights. I devoted the night to tracking down that perfect little hunk of gold. Somewhere along the way, though, I picked up a mining helmet, but I still can't figure out how to wear the darn thing, even though I followed the directions exactly by pressing 2. Rolling into day 20, whenever I had a spare moment, I spent it polishing gemstones and trying to reel in new fish from my trusty river. Apparently, it worked, because I landed both a tuna and a crab, so we're eating good tonight. Also, I tried my luck casting by the ocean for some fresh fish to level up my fishing rod, but no dice on getting new ones that I need. At least I can confidently say that I'm getting way better at sorting all these different nugget sizes. Day 21 rolled in with more of the same grind, quite literally, and I spent some time fishing off the docks while I muled over never-ending to-do lists.
Oh, this dude wants a 1.5 iron. Oh, no.
On the bright side, I discovered the market at Burnscroft sells water filters. Who knew? I definitely didn't. Naturally, I dashed back for some cash, bought one, and hooked it up to our pipes. With luck, that'll spare our machinery from frequent breakdowns. Remembering that dreaded 1.5 iron nugget that we still need, I went ahead and dumped all of our molten iron into a cozy little mold, brought it to the scale, and wow! This single iron bar nearly hit 330 kilos.
Oh, you have to be kidding me. 149. Ah, you son of a gun. Oh, not mad. Not mad at all.
I ended up sifting through so many nuggets in search of that perfect chunk of iron, you wouldn't even believe it. Day 22 was an absolute slog because of this. I'm pretty sure that I risked carpal tunnel from sifting through what felt like a mountain of ore. But thankfully, my perseverance finally paid off.
Oh, 1.5. Let's go. Alrighty. Come here, Big Papa. I got something for your...
But as fate would have it, by the time that I proudly presented that nugget, the person who asked for it had already changed their mind on what they wanted. At least Edgar's still on board. For now. On day 23, I tucked that iron nugget away for safekeeping and reset the iron smelting so I could focus on gold.
Oh, there it is. There it is. 1.5 gold nugget, baby. The nugget to trump all nuggets has been found. Edgar, my boy, I got a gift for you, my friend. Come here. Okay, how do I... There you go. Thank you. I hope I never have to do that again.
As for these so-called guild tokens, they are apparently a secondary currency, but I still hadn't figured out where to spend them. I then went looking for someone else that might need a helping hand, and ended up running into a guard who wants a dagger forged from a 200 weighted gold bar. That meant dusting off the scale and trying to get that math just right. Quick disclaimer, I am terrible at math. Luckily, I could use my shiny new smelter for this side project, so it didn't totally mess up my regular cash flow. Even so, it nearly fried my brain because the numbers just weren't adding up. By the time I finally stopped crunching, most of the day was gone. We're so close, but not quite there yet. On day 24, I proceeded to absolutely scramble my brain. As many of you know, I am stubborn to a fault, so I spent the whole day slicing and stacking bars, hoping to land exactly on that sweet 200. Spoiler alert, it refused to hit that perfect number, no matter how many times I tried. The closest ingot for our project was off by a stubborn 1.5. After some frantic math, I snagged 5 nuggets at 0.3 each, fused them together, and presto, hit that perfect 200 weight bar. With that in hand, I crafted the most pristine golden dagger known to humanity, and the guard rewarded me with 805 guild tokens for it, and with that, access to a new part of the castle, which immediately threw me more mind-boggling tasks my way. Oh, and apparently I can make soup in this game if I find any veggies. Go figure. For now, I deposited my shiny new income back at home and tidied up my workshop. With that monster project done, I couldn't dodge reality any longer. Time to fix our gem problem. Naturally, I headed to Icehelm to see if any conveyor belt parts could come to the rescue. I ended up buying a gem polisher, a vertical conveyor, and a splitter, leaving me broke all over again. Early that next morning, I headed back home and started clearing out the soil around the gem section. I'll admit, I was bracing myself for a total rework of our operation just to fit these new upgrades. With no real choice but to expand, I grabbed some stashed ingots, sold them to Julie for almost 10,000 coins, and with these in hand, stocked up on conveyor belt parts. When sundown hit, I got down to business at base. My mission, scoot all the machinery out a little bit further. It sounds like a massive chore, and honestly, it is, but there's something oddly satisfying about it too. Weirdly enough, I'm actually having a really good time. By sunrise, I extended the conveyor system, which immediately felt more efficient since it uses fewer tubes. Everything was finally back up and running, so it was time to tackle the real mission, gem and shard sorting. I started integrating new solutions, and things were looking promising, though the nighttime darkness was still a pain. That's when I finally realized how to equip my helmet. Apparently, you hit Q, not 2. Revelation of the century. Inspired, I tested the same approach on the tractor, and would you know it, I could actually use this thing this whole time. This is going to make my life so much easier. They really need to work on their fonts in this game. With my newly discovered speed machine, I hauled my precious coins to the mountain shop at breakneck pace and bought a few extra parts. Then I tossed them all down the chute for some quick delivery back home. On day 28, I practically skipped out of the mountain shop when I saw all my newly bought goodies neatly loaded onto the tractor. I headed back to base, put on the finishing touches, and fired up the system. The grand plan, you may ask? Shards to get whisked off to their own pan, while gems get cut, polished, and carefully set aside. One day, I'll even separate the gem types. Baby steps, people, let's not get ahead of ourselves. At long last, I could tackle the massive pile of shiny stuff that had been accumulating for ages. This had taken what felt like forever, but I was seriously thrilled to dump everything onto the conveyor belt, even if it made my PC chug a bit.
All right, so I'm literally carrying the sun in a pan right now. This has been technically the collection of multiple, and I mean multiple of days of gems and shards. So I'm excited to see what happens. I'm hoping it doesn't overflow to the sides, because that would be a shame. Without further ado, here we go. That's just one giant diamond dump right there. Look at it go! It just formed a glowing turd. That's right. Get that organized. Oh, that is so satisfying. Oh, that is pure bliss. It just looks so inappropriate. Oh, look at it all just pop out like that. Oh, I think that's an onyx. I think that's our first onyx. Yeah. Oh, there's another one in there too. Oh, that was worth it. Oh, that was worth it. That just made the whole 100 days right there.
With that handled, I finally sealed up the hole in the floor that had been seriously bugging me, and to be honest, at this point, I felt like I advanced so much I didn't really know how to be more efficient, so for the rest of the evening, I just tidied up and admired my handiwork. On day 29, I gave everything a quick glance over, snagged my trusty map along with some coins and basic digging gear, and then rolled on off towards Bridgeport.
I'm sorry.
After navigating across an intersection, I stumbled upon a gold stock market and then continued straight into town. This place, known as Bridgeport, boasts a truck dealership, and honestly, the prices don't seem too steep. Next up, I also found a scrapyard.
One man's trash is other man's hot trash.
Across the street was a wagon store, plus the usual variety of shops that I'd seen before, and a dragon skull. Because why not? Also discovered a vendor for wooden house pieces, and even a fancy decor store that's definitely on my future shopping list. Venturing further, I hit Hubson's Power Works, where I nearly lost it over barrels of TNT and mini nukes. I also spotted a bunch of items labeled Logic. Looks like they're all about ones and zeros, and my brain already hurts just thinking about that. At the far end of town, I also found the Cottage Supply Corporation with even more stores, large buildings, a massive ferry, and a new vehicle shop for heavy-duty drilling machines. They also sell core stone supplies and extra cottage pieces. Clearly, this is the biggest town of the map. I hopped back on the road and soon arrived at the local quarry, way larger than Ember Cradle, I might add. Surprise though, you can't just dig here for free, you gotta purchase the land first. Since I don't have these funds yet, I hightailed it back as fast as my tractor could go and spent all night farming more coin from Julie. On top of all that, my fish bucket was overflowing, so I swung back to Burnscroft to see if any of these might be the elusive fish needed for the next fishing rod upgrade. Sadly, no luck this time. Turns out I got everything but the right one, but at least these fish don't spoil, so that's more moolah for me. Day 30 had me loading up the essentials so I could go ahead and buy that brand new quarry. South Hope Quarry is officially mine. I have no clue how to handle so much land, but I do know that I want to deck out this mining facility with higher tier materials. While thinking what the heck to do with my massive new plot, I fished as the sun rose, and then it hit me. More land means more money. Of course, so I tested the soil to see what goodies it held. Didn't take long to unearth some corestone, or we must have struck it rich, I suppose. And I did remember that apparently the deeper you dig, the more valuable your finds, so naturally I dashed back to the city to snag an advanced pickaxe to dig deeper, only to discover that the store here doesn't accept Hydrocoin. They want guild tokens for this top tier pick, which means I actually have to help people to earn those. Who knew? Since I'm a bit short on tokens, it's time to tackle some orders. First up, an emerald and gold ring. Getting the gold bar to the right weight wasn't too bad this time, but I ran into a snag. How do I score a gem that big? There must be a way, given I've got a chisel to split gems in half. Off I went, combing the new shops, and sure enough, I found a logic gem compressor. That's going to be interesting, considering I've never messed with logic parts before. I also grabbed a few more conveyor belt pieces and headed home to strategize. After fine-tuning the setup, I noticed a couple of conveyor pieces missing, but no big deal, because my tractor makes quick trips in a breeze. Before long, I had a shiny conveyor belt system with a dedicated gem sorter for each type of gemstone. Once I set up collection pans for each sorter, I dumped my pan of gems onto the belts, and in a glorious display of workplace efficiency, every single gemstone sailed into its proper pan. Next up was installing the gemstone compressor. Thankfully, I also grabbed a logic controller. Without it, the compressor would have been about as useful as a glass hammer. After getting it plugged in, I started compressing all of my gems to dial in the perfect sized emerald. Time to bring on the sparkles, and with that, the cash flow. While waiting on more emeralds to process, I realized that I left my gold crucible totally unattended. Cue major cleanup session. At least it was still morning by the time I finally nailed the exact weight. Right when I was about to craft the ring, I noticed my gold bar was off by one singular unit. Almost made a massive whoopsie daisy if I would have crafted the ring with this. Luckily, by dusk, I tweaked it to perfection, and just like that, our client happily accepted the ring for a bundle of guild tokens, though probably not enough for that fancy pickaxe that I want. Off I went to find another job, and along the way, I spotted someone in need of a 1.5 iron nugget. Remember that we toiled over this for ages? I dashed home, scooped it up, and hurried back as fast as I could, only to discover the guy had already vanished. But no way he is slipping through my fingers yet again. I hunted him down, hot on his trail, my iron nugget in hand, ready to seal this deal. Like a rabid animal, I spent all night into the next morning hunting for this dude. At dawn, he finally showed up outside the same shop again, only now he couldn't care less about my precious nugget. So I begged the townfolk to buy this lonely pebble, but they just roamed about, ignoring me completely. So ultimately, I dropped my oh so valuable nugget right at Desmond's doorstep and grabbed a simpler quest worth over 900 guild tokens. Hey, a win's a win. Once I got home, I realized rubies that I gathered were only about half the needed weight, so I'd have to wait on that. Meanwhile, I was busy scouring for more tasks and still refusing to forget my beloved iron nugget.
Ooh, 2 point... What? 2 point... The audacity! The audacity of this... Oh my god. I don't want to ever see you. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want your tokens. I don't want nothing. Leave me be, foul demon.
Eventually, I found a request from Roy for an axe, totally doable, and another from Edgar for an iron dagger. You already know what this means. The rest of my night was spent slaving away at the forge, trying to bring these new commissions to life. In the early hours of day 34, I finally nailed the exact weight for the iron bar. With that done, I turned my attention to the gold bar, which, after a solid chunk of tedious labor, hit its perfect weight close to nightfall. That meant I could finally craft Roy's axe and head off to deliver it. Picture me strolling through a snowy path at dusk, carrying a shiny axe. Naturally, I turn to you all and wonder, should I do a 100 days in Skyrim? Anyways, after dropping off Roy's axe, I spent the rest of the night forging Edgar's dagger, because who needs sleep when there's gold and glory at stake? I thought to myself going into day 35 if this is the most efficient way of going about this, and it definitely is not. Is it all that my brain can currently muster? Most definitely.
Ah, Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. It hurts every time.
You know what? That does it. I'm determined to find a weight sorter if it's the last thing that I do. By sunset, I finally snagged the elusive nugget and forged the dagger, and the client, as we delivered his goods, handed over a nice boost in guild tokens. I'll accept more tasks once I figure out a better way to sort weights. Meanwhile, I hurried my stash of guild tokens over to Bridgeport and finally bought the advanced pickaxe that I had been drooling over. At long last, on day 36, I started excavating my brand new quarry at South Hope. As you know, the plan is to dig deeper to tap into richer resources, but let's be real, my hands are incredibly soft, so it was a lot of physical labor for me, and it got crazy dark down this mine shaft, so I ran home, grabbed my miner's hat and a fistful of cash, and figured that TNT might be helpful, but after using it, I realized it's not that effective.
Okay, that was incredibly underwhelming. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. You know, honestly, this might be more useful for like TNT fishing or something. And considering I can't die, let me just stand like right next to this. Yeah, that was 100% a waste of my hard-earned cash.
I bolted to Icehelm to check out their machines. They sell different tiered contraptions, and each design calls for a specific amount of ore to craft, but I misplaced all of my cloutium and core stone, and I'm gonna need a lot of this anyways to make this, so I'm stuck starting with tier 1, basically. So I bought the schematics for all 3 tier 1 machines, and zipped back to my base at Ember Cradle for iron bars. Lucky for me, the first 100 weight bar was basically handed to me by fate, no math required, but next up was the 60 bar, which was painfully tricky.
Oh, you bitch. Oh, double
By the next morning, my persistence had paid off. I got the 60 bar done. Then it was on to the 300 bar. Thanks to the power of math, and maybe some guesswork, I nailed it. With all that sorted, I chucked my materials onto the truck, and by now, I had grown fond of this hunk of metal, so I have christened her as Old Betty. She hauled everything, plus the spare tubing, to Icehelm, so I could finally craft the new machines at the giant anvil. And thanks to having my wagon here now, it was pretty easy to get all the freshly forged machines loaded onto Old Bessie. Feeling like a kid on Christmas morning, I rushed to set everything up. That's when I realized the water source was miles away. So cue the need for more piping. Rather than sticking with the basics, I decided to upgrade to cloutium tubing because, you know, go big or go home. Building a base ain't cheap, I grumbled, as I bought what felt like the entire store. Hopefully, this'll let me launch my new quarry operation. While loading up Old Bessie, Desmond appeared. I wanted to give him that precious nugget that I'd left at his doorstep, but of course, he changed his quest. Desmond might just be the reason this city goes up in flames. Luckily, I discovered that you can drop unlimited items onto Old Bessie by jumping and looking at the sky. Best glitch ever. Getting back to base at sunset, I started constructing my facility, and realizing that I'd still need more cloutium tubing, despite emptying my wallet earlier, I settled on at least setting up the auto miner so some profit could trickle in. Not surprisingly, I needed some serious coin to solve these new piping problems. I spent day 39 grinding out more money, and also picked up some water filters. 4 were for Camp Cradle, and 5 for our new facility at South Hope. With these, I hope that our water quality will finally reach 100%, and we never need to repair our machines again. During the supply run, Old Bessie let out a nasty sputter. Turns out, she was out of fuel. Perfect timing! With Old Bessie empty, I had to hoof it around looking for a quick fix. Ended up filling a pan with water, hopped on top of her, and gave her a drink. And just like that, she was purring like new. Anyway, I bought 25 straight tubes and some spare L pipes. Knowing that I'd also probably need some conveyor belts, I grabbed a few next door too. With all these new goodies, I went a bit wild, setting up a pipeline that finally reached the mine entrance. Satisfying, to say the least. From there, I cleared a downward path to lay a solid foundation and started building my water pipes all the way on down. Given the depth, I'm probably going to need max water pressure on this beast. I spent the night clearing out dirt, making room for the best mining operation this side of the island. The dream is coming together, slowly, but oh so surely. At the crack of dawn, I swung by Camp Cradle to make sure everything was running smoothly, only to discover 2 of my water filters were already broken.
I know what's wrong with it. It ain't got no gas in it.
I started compacting gems and, in the heat of the moment, made a massive oopsie-doopsie.
Oh. Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Oh, boy. Oh, we live. We live. Holy moly, I thought that was the end of it. Oh boy, you know what? Yeah. Oh, yeah, doing this is for the, oh, whoa! Whoa! What? Hello? Oh no, what have I done? I regret everything. Oh, wait. Pan. All these are gonna go to the end. I did that. Please. Oh no, this is gonna be a problem. Oh, this is bad. Oh. Oh. Oh Lord. I don't know what happened, but evidently this is not meant to compact freaking shards. That has become very clear.
Apparently, shards do not like being compacted, so I had a glorious mess to clean up. Luckily, I rediscovered a tool that made my life infinitely easier.
Oh. Oh. Oh, this is good. Oh. Oh, this is beautiful. Come to Papa. Oh. Let me just take a massive, shiny dump into this furnace here. Hold on. I am Magneto.
With the chaos tidied up, I hopped onto old Bessie, grabbed many more pipes, and returned to South Hope, which I had dubbed the Seaman facility because it's next to the sea, for more pipe laying and hole digging. And honestly, doing all of this is a total throwback to our Deep Rock Galactic sessions on our group channel, The Nest. Go check it out sometime. Realizing I needed Camp Cradle to churn out more coin for my new facility, I spent all of day 42 digging and expanding my quarry hole. By the time I wrapped up that hard day's work, I cashed in at Julie's and decided to buy more straight pipes instead of L-shaped ones to save on cost. On day 43, I reworked the system to use more straights than Ls. Of course, I still ran out of tubing, which meant selling off the gemstones that I hoarded since the dawn of this recording. I kept my precious onyx though. They are way too rare to part with. It hurt to sell the rest, but that sacrifice funded more Cloutium tubing, which should get the Seaman facility rolling. What a noble sacrifice if I do say so myself. Day 44 was all about digging. I spent practically every minute deepening that pit. Now and then, I did scurry back to Camp Cradle for upkeep, my word for fixing what keeps breaking. By nightfall, my brand new tubing finally reached the bottom of the cave, which meant I could start assembling the machines of this facility. As for day 45, I noticed I might have gone a bit overboard on this hole because my tier 1 auto drill can't handle rock solid ground at this depth, so some small rearrangements are in order. I plopped it on softer soil and confirmed tier 1 can't mine tier 2 or tier 3 ground. So I carved out a nook higher up, set it all up, and got it working. No regrets on the extra piping though, as it'll come in handy later. This quarry should have loads of core stone and Cloutium, I just need the right gear. Most of the next morning was spent rigging up an iron sorting system at the Seaman facility, plus the usual Camp Cradle upkeep. By noon, iron sorting was automated, so I started locking all of the loose stuff into place so that I don't accidentally pick it up while working here. I built a sort of conga line of sorters and smelters on day 47, and by the end of the day, they were humming along beautifully.
Okay, so we have a whole Cloutium system with an extra pressure tank, 5 filters, an extra little boosty boost by this thing right here, and as y'all know, it goes straight down into the mine shaft. And how this system works at the moment is in this conga line. It is all at tier 1 depth. The idea is that we're going to place one down there for tier 2 and tier 3, and at the moment it should work. We got a lot of pressure over here, and the idea is it goes into the filter and sorts itself into gold, iron, Cloutium, core stone, and then gems, and then hopefully all of any of the unpolished gems go into that little bucket over there. Without further ado, let's let her rip. Okay, we have a snag of the plans. It turns out things are not perfect in paradise, as the gold nuggets seem to be getting stuck right about there, which wasn't the case at Camp Cradle, so I'm a little bit perplexed by this, but it is what it is. Looks like we're just gonna have to find a solution to this and maybe restructure this in a staircase system.
This fix required a lot of brain power, and what we came up with is to use conveyor belt sorters to put the nuggets into smelters. At least we know that the conveyor belts will be running at what seems to be Mach 5. Just look at these nuggets go! The little bit of money that I was gathering from Camp Cradle was dumped instantly into conveyor sorters. Slowly but surely, this operation was being optimized to its fullest capacity. By day 49, I added the final touches to the automated system and cranked this contraption to maximum overdrive. I've saved a ton of tubing and pans and don't have to fuss with multiple furnaces. Seeing all of this run flawlessly gave me a serious sense of pride. I wrapped up the evening by cleaning up my workspace just the way I liked it, and finally, we started reaping the rewards of this massive investment on day 50. The Seaman facility's output shot up, and those tier 2 designs at Icehelm suddenly felt attainable. For now, though, I invested in some building parts to make the space more accessible and spent a good chunk of time perfecting the place. I capped off the day by crafting a snazzy entrance to the mineshaft, and I couldn't be happier. It's all coming together, and we're only halfway through the 100 days. The only thing this base is missing is a solid workspace, so while sprucing up the place, I snagged up a crab pot to passively farm fish at the shore, and figured I'd throw in a scale, table, and a few more goodies for the workshop. I even built an intentionally shabby looking shack over the mineshaft just to make the vibe just right. I could practically smell the money from up here. To wrap up this day, I checked my Cloutium amount and noticed we're closing in on 20 kilograms. Not bad, but we can do better, as my plan for tomorrow was to bring more machines to this facility to double our output and cut down on back and forth trips. And that's exactly what I did on day 52. My plan was to create a symmetrical setup on the other side of the mineshaft using the same conveyor belts and smelters. Naturally, I just had to buy more supplies first.
That's honestly not too bad. You know what, Desmond? I still hate you for not taking the nugget. That's it. That's the end of the conversation.
I did get a bit too fancy with the detailing and left one drill dangling midair, but a minor extension fixed that right up by nightfall. Thanks to our minimal investment, we officially doubled our income potential here. We'll be rolling in dough very, very soon. Before jumping into tier 2 machinery, I want an auto repair system for the filters though, and maybe a gem sorter too. None of this is wasted time since I still need plenty of Cloutium to build those shiny designs at Icehelm. Day 53 was all about hooking up gem sorters. We spent all day doing that, and by nightfall, everything was up and running with a gem compressor in the mix, working like a charm. Next up, we had to tackle those auto repairs that I've been dreaming about. I visited Hobson's Powerworks, suspecting I would need a durability reader and spanner hurler combo. Since I have 5 filters and they keep breaking, I'll need 5 separate setups. The connections seem to be different, so I just grabbed a ton of cables and hauled it all back to the facility. On day 54, I remembered to pick up a bunch of spanners for the hurlers, but that cost me a bit of money, but good thing I also sold the gold bar for over 20 grand. That's the payoff that we live for. With these newly acquired funds, I stocked up on more cables, but the logic circuit still refused to behave. Then it hit me. I need a logic switch. One more trip to Hobson's Powerworks, a few logic flip hooks later, and bam! Everything finally worked. I replicated the setup for each filter, and by day's end, I concluded that I just had to keep the hurlers stocked with spanners to keep the system alive. Now I can finally leave on adventures without production grinding to a halt. I'm so happy. On day 55, I decided to take my wad of cash and march on over to Icehelm so I could buy the tier 2 designs. We paid a massive amount of money and bought all 3 in one go, and had a glance at the designs. Gathering enough Cloutium for these machines will be quite hard, as that resource seems quite scarce, so I decided to make another tier 1 drill, hoping that that would pay off. On my way back to base, I decided to make a pit stop at a village that we hadn't seen before yet, called Grangefield, I think that's how you pronounce it, and they seem to sell everything for your farming needs, as well as cooking stuff too. The town seems to deal in a different currency, something like a farming guild token, but one little shop here deals in Hydroneer coin, so I'll be sure to stop by after we set up our 3rd drill. And to build that, I went to pick up the remaining iron that was left at Camp Cradle and began to forge this big iron bar that we would need. After prepping ingots and bringing them over to the factory to complete the process, it was on day 56 that I searched for the perfect nugget weight, and by sundown first, smelted a 300 weight ingot, enough for that tier 1 drill that I wanted. Our Cloutium stash also hit 80 kilograms by now, putting us halfway to our tier 2 goal. With the 3rd drill in hand, I headed back home, ready to ramp up Cloutium production. Installing this third drill wasn't too hard thanks to the existing tubing layout. Well, I mean, I did forget to connect the water to the conveyor belts, but after a little bit of reorganizing, that got fixed. The triple drill system was now operational, and while waiting on our 150 kilogram Cloutium bar, I also needed to get a 1,000 kilogram iron bar. That's our biggest project yet.
Why?
Eventually, I found the exact piece that I needed, which was so satisfying. All that's left is preparing a proper spot for tier 2 drilling. Day 58 started off interestingly as I caught a puffer fish, which is exactly what I needed for my next fishing rod. With the old slippy grip pole, and considering I had left a crab here last time, I got straight to the placeholder fishing rod. I was so excited to use it and made my way back to base.
I don't suppose you can grab me this.
You can grab my nuts, old man. Can't you see I'm busy?
Back at home, I cleared out an area for the future tier 2 station, and fortunately, I had bought a ton of Cloutium tubing earlier, so running pipes to the new platform was quite easy. I spent the rest of the day testing out my fancy rod, hoping to snag my next catch being a swordfish. It dawned on me though on day 59 that instead of just fishing, I could build a greenhouse or something and grow veggies passively in the meantime, so I hopped onto old Bessie, bought a bunch of farming supplies, and went all in on that farmer life. I dug small holes with a shovel, planted some seeds, and prayed that I watered them enough for them to stay alive. Only time will tell. I also set up a bare bones kitchen and seed extractor, then spent the evening forging 3 new tier 1 intake booster hooks, each weighing 60 kilograms, because as they say, planning ahead never hurts. By day 60, I was thoroughly sick of manually measuring ingots, so it's time to solve this issue once and for all. I hopped on over to the logic shop to see if I could find the remedy for this issue, and although I didn't know how to use it, the cumulative weight reader sounded like what I was needing. However, I didn't actually buy it, and eventually found out that what I'd been looking for was a logic saw hook. So I went and got my guild tokens, figuring I might have just found the cure to my biggest headache. But the question stood before me: where the hell do I set this up? I decided to enlarge my workspace to accommodate the new equipment, and in the evening, we began to set up our logic device.
I don't think this is gonna work at all, but let's find out. If this gives me a 10, my life has changed. Oh my god, this is amazing. Oh, this changes everything. Oh, I beat the game. I beat the game.
No more dastardly days need to be wasted going through different weights. I was so thankful that this worked. I was beaming with joy. We're finally on track for serious efficiency. And so at long last, this new logic saw was set to work on day 61, setting it to 60 and carving off 3 neat chunks for intake boosters. Life has never been this easy. I raced back to Icehelm, forged them within seconds, and proudly hooked them up to our beloved facility back home, which is quickly becoming my pride and joy. But here's the beauty of this game: the efficiency knows no bounds, and all the guild tokens are now at the tip of our fingertips. It was pure bliss to look at an item requisition, cut the required weight off, and cash in the tokens. To end off the day, I did some inventory and was shocked to realize I had an iron bar that is worth almost 100,000 coins, and a gold bar that just surpassed that. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. So on day 62, I went on a spending spree for all sorts of miscellaneous items. Crab pots, a safe, a chair, some lamps, all the works. These items here helped me deck out the base, making it feel more homey. In the afternoon, I prioritized the preparation of a farming patch and turned my first 2 tomatoes into some seeds because honestly, they're quite expensive, but still in the evening, I was off to buy more seeds as I'm going to need more than just these 2 on hand. And just as I returned back home, we reached the 200 kilograms of Cloutium, which I turned into a bar of 50 kgs and a bar of 150, all so that I could make some tier 2 machinery. So it was at dusk of day 63 that we brought our bars over to Icehelm and forged our machines under the intense heat of greed. I went to bring them home straight away to hook them up to our desired depth, and on my way back I was just keeping an eye out for some item requisitions to take. I just want to find someone to give my 1.5 iron nugget.
Very lucky this game doesn't let me punch.
I returned to the facility, very excited to connect everything, but noticed that the drill had a weird connection spot. It's different than tier 1, so I put a bit of thought into fixing this, and although I came up with a very unoptimized system, it kind of works for now. Emphasis on kind of, but what matters is that it's producing. So for the moment, I can dump everything it makes into our sorting conga line at tier 1. What was nice to see is that it seemed that we would be getting core stone much more frequently with this device at tier 2 depth. Day 64 began by tending to our growing pile of fish and planting all the seeds that I had previously bought. And to make the irrigation system for this farm, I decided to dismantle the tubing arrangement at Camp Cradle since my plants don't need the water pressure of expensive Cloutium tubing.
Go Bessie, go Bessie, go Bessie, 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 go Bessie, go Bessie.
I gathered some of the iron tubing and made my way back quickly as I wanted to get this done fast for Papa needs some farm guild tokens. I got to work straight away, but this wasn't easy. You see, I love South Hope, but the beach of South Hope is separated quite a bit compared to Ember Cradle, so it was definitely a drag to make enough tubing to reach the quarry area again, but at least the positive is that this tubing will also double for a refueling station for old Bessie, which will prevent me from getting stuck on the road. As for actually farming, it became considerably more clear that if I wanted to use this tubing method, I would need to first place down the pipes and then plant the seeds, because aiming the pipe drip is impossible. But in a positive light, we've come a long way since we first got here, and it is definitely showing. We also had an impressive 21 kilograms of core stone by the end of the day, which is very nice. First, by noon of day 65, I finished installing a drip irrigation system for the crops, which should hold me over until I can snag a proper sprinkler. I took another quick shopping run for a tool rack, gotta stay organized, some roofing for the kitchen area, and was excited to see how far my green thumb could possibly take me on this farming side project. The rest of the day was spent on much needed cleanup, since my base was starting to look like a hoarder's paradise. Day 66 was a fishing day, since most of my machines and crops were busy doing their thing, so all we could do is fish and try to get the swordfish for our next fishing rod. That's a lot of fish. But yes, it didn't take us long for us to find what we were looking for, as we had landed an absolutely microscopic swordfish. Without much dilly-dally, I traded it in for the emerald fishing pole. Our next target is a monkfish. I'd recognize that shape anywhere due to my RuneScape experience from back in the day. I continued to use the emerald rod in hopes to get the monkfish, but only managed to obtain a shark, which is still great, but not what I need. More and more, this reminds me of when me and the boys made our 100 Days of Raft video. By sundown, most of what I had planted had grown, but the stems stayed after harvesting them, so I'd wait to see if they would regrow or if I would have to cut it all down. On the next day, I made myself busy by cutting tomatoes with our industrial grade saw so I could complete some requests. I whipped out my cooking skills, and all you need to do is add the cut tomato to a pot of boiling water, and there you are. Soup. The soup was handed to our good friend Clyde for a solid 12 farm guild tokens. A cheap That's basically nothing, as we need over 2,000 for a singular sprinkler hook. Who is making these prices? This is definitely price gouging. For now, I left my farming aside, as I had achieved enough Cloutium for a second tier 2 drill, which we forged to perfection. By the end of the day, I had effectively doubled my production, and I wasn't mad about that one bit at all. Before starting up the second drill, though, I wanted to see how much the first drill made us until now.
Oh! Ooh, mama! Look at that go! Now imagine, all of that times 2 is what we're making right now. That is nuts.
Let's just say I embarked on a grand soup delivery crusade across the island. Only the most refined palates may taste it. And, well, there's Desmond. Desmond. I delivered my soups to my clients, but I realized that these people are not a very eco-friendly bunch, as they seem to have no problem with littering, but at least that gives me my bowls back. The farm guild tokens were slowly stacking up, and I did not shy away from accepting any farming quests that I found. Even got to repair some mixed soups with carrots and tomatoes. Gordon Ramsay would be so proud, I can already tell. At midnight, I uprooted all of my crops, as I felt like they weren't producing any vegetables anymore, so I had to replant all of them after that. And thus, the farming grind continued into day 69.
One day I'll buy a shiny new truck.
Of course you will, Desmond. Of course you will.
I don't suppose you can grab me this?
You're wasting my time, Betty. You're wasting my time.
In search of some new quests, I stumbled upon a new quarry called Drek. All me and Max Raptor could find online about this quarry is that people, for some odd reason, don't particularly like it, so I shall join in the unexplained hate and also say, fuck Drek. If anything, this will be a nuclear bomb testing site. Right next door, close to Icehelm, is also the Mildew Aquifer, which has its water underground. An interesting concept for the game. By afternoon, I was short on tomatoes again, so I spent the rest of the day on base upkeep, unloading the tier 2 mining pan, which nearly blew up my PC from the sheer volume, and fished throughout the night, stashing away any rare catches that I came across, like that shark that I named Bruce and an extra swordfish, safely tucked away at my new vault. On day 70, I set my sights on relocating the auto sorters so they could handle tier 2 resources without me dumping everything at once and nuking my frame rate. I spent the morning planning and shopping for new parts, and in the afternoon, knee-deep in dirt, expanded and rearranged the whole facility. This place is getting a major overhaul. Hopefully, my machines and my PC will thank me later. And that's how I wrapped up day 70, with big ambitions for an even more efficient Seaman facility and only 30 more days to go until the grand finale, so things are ramping up quick. To kick off day 71, I strutted over to Julie's with a tiny 86,000 valued gold bar just to show off how far we've come, and then stocked up on some much needed conveyor belts.
Damn, you're gonna need to keep digging.
I'm tired, Grandpa. Well, that's too bad.
You keep digging.
The rest of the day was spent toiling away in the dark recesses of the cave, chiseling out the next big step of our operation. Seaman Factory 2.0 was set up, but not yet perfected on day 72.
Okay, so this is how the system's supposed to work. Ignoring the farm and all that, nothing here has really changed, but essentially, as y'all know, water flows down, and we've kind of simplified some of the things. Tier 1 depth, all of these miners simply just dump their processed dirt and ores all the way through this conveyor belt down this chute, which should land all of the ores right here. They then proceed to go here and take a right and land at a centralizer, where as well all the ore falls down from the depth tier 2 drills. Now, for now, we have auto smelting and auto sorting for all of the ores set up, and hopefully that works and they don't fall all over the place. And at the end, we just have a chute and hope that all of the raw gemstones or cross-cut gemstones fall into this for the time being until we come up with that fix, because I kind of want to get this show on the road. And without further ado, I think it's time we let her rip. Just got to turn this valve right here, and presto! Let's hope we don't come to a complete and utter mess. Right, everything here seems to be going fine. Obviously, nothing here has really changed. It's just that all of this stuff isn't getting auto-sorted. We're just moseying along together with the ores, which seem to do just well. Yeah, like, they're doing just fine. Going to the right, getting centralized, and presto. Everything seems to be going well. Would you look at that? Not too shabby, if I do say so myself. We haven't had a screw-up in this flow, except for that. Of course, something had to happen. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. And why is there... Maybe I spoke too soon. Either way, it's going better than I expected, and I'm happy.
I did, however, notice that some nuggets were being flung across the space, seemingly due to the fact that the funnel was too high up, causing some of the pieces to go AWOL, so I fixed the issue by making a chimney of funnels. And sure enough, that seemed to do the trick. All I needed to do now was clean up the mess it left behind. All this effort, just so my PC wouldn't threaten to self-destruct from the chaos. So after several trips to buy parts on day 73, along with a fair amount of hammering things into place, the new system is finally running smoothly. Is what I thought. Sure, it's cramped, but it does the job, and it'll take functionality over pretty any day. We're sitting on a hefty 200 kilograms of core stone on day 74, still 600 short of the 800 kilograms needed for a tier 3 drill, sure, so we have ways to go, but since everything is cruising along, the most logical thing for me to do now is just keep cooking, I suppose. Hopefully one day we can make a full-blown greenhouse up here, but while doing my kitchen duties, I realized that even at ground level, the game stuttered quite considerably. I wonder what I have to do to fix that. This is definite foreshadowing. On day 75, I had some login troubles, but thankfully the main menu has a delete loose ore option, and that cleared up a lot of random bits that I didn't know existed, and this should have queued me in on a major problem, but it didn't. The game was running way smoother after this, so that's all I cared about. So back to the grind I went. In my humble opinion, the farming and soup quests are the most painful to do because you can't cut veggies into decimal weights, but that changed as I discovered on a forum that you can use more than what the quest calls for the soup. Hallelujah! That's right, the veggie weights on the item requisitions are only the minimum amount. So while my soup simmered, I reeled in a big old monkfish at long last. After my soup deliveries, I traded that fish for the real dream fishing rod, so I was stoked. And the good news is that the next fish needed was a shark, and I just happened to have one lying around, and so instantly we traded up for the next night rod. So, much to my surprise, as soon as I got back to base on day 76, I realized I only need one more rod, so I committed the day to grinding it out. All that's left is an elusive lobster.
Yeah, the thing is, for me, it was like a... Oh, what? Okay, mission success. I guess we're done. Let's hand it in.
I then went back to Burnscroft and traded my final sea creature for the master fishing pole. That's one thing off my checklist. To celebrate, I considered buying a drilling vehicle, but I ended up being short on guild tokens, so I spent the day fulfilling prospector item requisitions, which in my humble opinion are much more fun to do than the farming ones. To make these items, I applied a slight change to the setup by bringing the logic saw down to my workspace. In the late evening, this change was applied, which should increase my quest output significantly. Day 77 was used to accept and execute different prospecting quests. One after the other, these item requisitions were squeezed out with ease. At the end of the day, I completed 4 orders for a total of 3,191 guild tokens. I'm no Scrooge McDuck over here, but I'm guessing it's something. The next day, I noticed that the farming quests that were popping up were now requiring different veggies, so seems like the word of our good soup is spreading across the land. On my journey to gather as many farming quests as possible now, I came across Snow Rune Falls Quarry. Icy cold here, seems to be all frozen over, but sadly there is no one here to give me quests. After preparing and handing in 2 more quests, I finally had enough to buy the drilling vehicle. It's called the Mole, and I can't wait to see what it can do. So the first thing I did was drive to Camp Cradle to try it out. This beast chews through dirt like a hot knife through butter. Wish I had this when I was setting up the Seaman factory. Would have saved me a few days for sure. While I was digging in Ember Cradle, I spotted something in the dirt though on day 79, a spyglass relic. I have no idea what it does, so I put it aside and just kept digging, and thus made the mistake by getting into a pickle that didn't allow me to get all the dirt out with the mole, so I had a very bright idea. What I required was a very specific logic item, some logic TNT, and if push comes to shove, we'll just have to dig it out with a pickaxe. I set everything up and tried out the first one. It made a sizable crater, sure, but I wasn't that impressed. It blew up some of the cables and even the lever, leaving me with chunks of scrap metal. Not sure what this is for, but safe to say, this did not go as planned, and I will be clearing out the rest with my pickaxe. And sure enough, at sundown, I got another one of these relics. This one being of a sword. I wonder what they're used for. Unsure if I would find any more, I just kept digging throughout the night and placed these relics in the pedestals of the cave nearby, because, you know, that is what the item description tells me to do. So I guess we need 2 more. Logically, I figured the other 2 relics would be deeper in the opposite side of the base, so I stocked up on TNT and spent most of day 80 rigging everything up. Blowing up our very first base was kind of hurtful, stung a little bit, but hey, it's for science. Unfortunately, these explosions were quite modest, so I realized I'd probably need nukes for anything larger than this. The mole helped out a bit, sure, but I didn't find any more relics, meaning other quarries likely hold them. As for Camp Cradle, sometimes you just gotta accept that an old base has given it its all and move on. The only other quarry that I could look for relics on day 81 was South Hope, as I only had that quarry purchased, so I bought a steamroller and flattened the place out. And boy oh boy, using this machine is so incredibly satisfying. It took me over half a day to flatten out the majority, and then I had to bring the mole on over to start digging out the rest. Through the nights, I operated heavy machinery, always trying to be sure to not dig into our mine shaft, and boy, the mole's turn radius is legendarily terrible. But hey, at least on day 82, I was quickly becoming a strip mining savant. Plus, the steamroller smoothed everything out with minimal fuss. Midway though, I noticed a sparkly patch of dirt. Turns out it was a rich iron vein and not another relic. So we gotta keep looking. By evening, I dug tons of dirt out with nothing to show for, so I decided to shift tactics. If brute force wasn't going to cut it, I'll just bring in the big guns. Time to buy my first nuke. So I tried to get it to the center of the largest mound of dirt, made a cozy little nook for our nuke, and prepared for demolition.
Alrighty. This is it. The moment we've been waiting for. I have planted the bomb. Smack dab in the middle, and I don't know how much it's gonna clear. I just hope that the result is just getting another relic, because that's all we're after. The rest is all secondary. So, if y'all don't mind me, I'm gonna roleplay as Oppenheimer, turn this into Nevada, and without any further ados, here we go. Oh, there is the cloud. I was like, did it actually happen? Well, it does have a nuclear cloud. Sure, I'll give it that. Oh, it's still going too. Okay. Interesting. I feel like I'm going to need 50 of these though if I want to make any significant dent. But let's see the damage we did. Let's have a little peek inside, shall we? Okay, it does look a little bit more significant once you're inside. However, there is no artifact to be seen, which is a shame. Ain't gonna lie, I was kind of hoping to be doing this as a one and done thing. But I guess my work isn't done here yet.
After all that, I turned my attention to something a bit more productive, forging 2 more tier 2 drills to speed up core stone farming. After a quick stop at Icehelm to craft them, and grabbing some extra tubing and conveyor belts from Bridgeport, of course. Beep, beep.
Wow, that was an achievement. Bonk, hit 25 NPCs with a vehicle. It's been 25 already.
I hurried back home only to find that my auto repair machines were nearly out of spanners, so another shopping trip was in order. This auto repair machine has saved me so much time, so I'm not even mad. Bright and early the next morning, I got to work installing those 2 new tier 2 drills. This required a whole lot of head scratching and involuntary brain usage, and by sundown though, both drills were humming. Now we're cooking with fire, folks. I checked my core stone stash, 252 kilograms out of the total of 1,100 kilograms that we need for the tier 3 drill and harvester. We still have a long road ahead, but hey, it's progress. Relic hunting again on day 85, I realized searching for a tiny trinket in a mountain of dirt is basically the equivalent of looking for a needle in a haystack. At some point though, I accidentally dug into my own mineshaft. It was inevitable, really. The best part is though that I managed to flip the mole completely upside down and then started driving on the ceiling. Not quite as efficient as I was hoping for, but silly nonetheless. I refuse to quit on day 86. If there is a relic somewhere in this dirt, I'm going to find it, no matter the cost. So looking for it took up the entire day, and thanks to my stubbornness, my efforts paid off in the morning of day 87.
Oh, I saw it! Or those my eyes deceived me. I saw something. Get back here. Where was it? I know I saw something. There it is. I'm not crazy.
Finally, another relic. With angelic choirs singing, I loaded it onto old Bessie and took it to its final pedestal. Only one more to go. Needing a break though from all that digging, I tackled some item quests and used my earnings for a fancy new prospecting helmet. Its gears spin when you're looking in the direction of an ore vein, which is pretty handy. I also spotted a core stone intake tube at the shop, snagged it, and went full throttle by dropping my humongous shard bar into this new pressure tank, which I also purchased. This baby's running at Formula 1 speeds now. On day 88, with nothing better to do, I did a couple of rounds on old Bessie to find new quests, but couldn't find any, so I had no choice but to free up some NPCs by fulfilling some of their farming quests. So once I was on my way to hand over some of my famous soups, Dolores handed me a prospecting quest, which made me very happy. I finished that quest and handed it in to end off the day. The next morning, I worked a bit on my small garden and decided I might as well try and plant some other types of vegetables, so I moseyed on over to Grangefield, where I was shocked to find out the prices for seeds. I spent so much time doing farming quests and could only buy 1 pack of corn and 1 pack of onion seeds, which means I need to plant these and then make more seeds out of them first. At about noon, the irrigation system was built a bit higher to avoid the issues we had been having of the plants growing so big that they blocked the dripping water and end up drying out, and the seeds were then planted at sundown. The morning footage wasn't recorded, sadly, of day 90, but here's what happened. I finally stumbled on the arrow relic, which I'm holding on to till day 100. I also got a wild idea to buy every hydrocoin-based vehicle that I could, so I snagged a yellow hydro truck Mark II, as it reminds me of the yellow Tonka trucks that I used to play with as a kid, and a speedy quad that's perfect for food deliveries. Wait a minute, did I just become DoorDash? Unfortunately, I hit a mini progression lock. There were no new quests for me, nor new fish to catch, or urgent mining tasks to complete, so I ended up waiting for my veggies to grow. By sunset, I checked our core stone output again, and it seems to have slowed to a crawl. Is this stuff rarer than I thought? It looks like the final sprint to tier 3 might be a real nail-biter. With 10 days left in the challenge, who knows if I'll finish everything on my checklist. On day 91, I went around looking at my accomplishments and put everything into overdrive as I needed more drills to hopefully get more core stone. I managed to make 2 more drills and got them hooked up at my base as quickly as I could because time is of the essence. But I wasn't just fighting against the clock, I was also fighting the absolute copious amount of lag that this contraption was producing. Making these drills had me using up all of my cloudium, by the way, so I was worried that I might not make enough back to eventually make tier 3 drills. By day's end, we officially had 6 tier 2 miners, completely doubling the tier 1 output. My PC was begging for mercy with all the flying ore, so I spent the rest of the evening hunting for random spots where resources might be jamming up the system, and the next morning, I did find a spot where my main harvester constantly had been getting its resources stuck. This means we haven't been getting the resources from the tier 2 drills. My whole life is a lie, so go ahead, laugh it up, folks. I deserve it. So I made some quick adjustments, releasing a tidal wave of stuck ore.
That was a workout.
And at about noon, after some restructuring, the facility was reactivated and everything started flowing like it should have been. We have officially unleashed the beast.
Okay, yeah, apparently that whole facility wasn't really working, and I was wondering what the heck was going on with core stone being so slow. We were at like 311 weight of this stuff for multiple days, and now we just let it rip and we're at 387. I think we're going to be okay. I'm glad we caught that. I really, really am glad we caught that.
Not only did we fix the clog, we also probably saved my PC from imploding. As a bonus, my corn and onions were finally ripe too. Things were looking up. Through the night, I prepared a spot for tier 3 drills in case that dream should come to fruition. At dawn of day 93, I snatched up an advanced rake so I could shape the tier 3 area more precisely. I also grabbed conveyor belts, pipes, and anything that I could see myself needing for the next level rig. By the afternoon, I built a makeshift ore escalator and leveled the ground for the grand tier 3 drill zone. I wanted to get the ball rolling on day 94, so I started preparing ingots for a tier 3 harvester, and with them, headed to Icehelm to smash them together in the giant anvil, only to realize I hadn't even bought the designs yet. So I purchased all 3 designs in one go and forged the harvester, making me the proudest owner of tier 3 machinery. So I made my way back to base to hook it up as fast as possible. And as I placed it, it noticeably looks more modern than the other devices. Once we had it set up, the rest of the day was spent just preparing for when we could eventually make the drill. All I could do now was to wait for core stone and cloudium to accumulate, and to prepare the iron and gold weights for the special sword quest. After that, I prepared some more of my famous soups using some new vegetables and made a delivery run with old Bessie. At night, I bought some more spanners for our automated repair machine, which honestly has been the MVP of this entire adventure. The entirety of day 96 was spent watching the ore flow, hoping to get enough for our goals. I also went around tidying up the base, putting things where they belong, and compressing the gems. While this was happening, I almost made my PC crash.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh. Uh-oh. This is not good. This is really not good. Oh, shit. Okay. Whew. We live.
By the end of the day, we had finally reached our goal weight for both the core stone and cloutium. I was a happy lad indeed, as on day 97 was the day to make my first and likely only tier 3 drill. I sprinted over to Icehelm, dropped my prepared ingots into the giant crucible, and pulled the lever. Isn't she beautiful? She was up and running in no time back at the Seaman factory, meaning I could cross off yet another of my endgame goals. The question that arose now, though, was to see if I could make the sword for the Royal Guard in time. I needed more core stone, so while I waited, I went on a quick vehicle shopping spree. Come evening, I swung by Hobson's Power Works for some cables, as I had something very, very, very special in mind for the end of this adventure. On day 98, all I could do was wait for more core stone to accumulate, and at long last, at about noon, I had accumulated 400 kilograms of core stone, which allowed me to make the special Royal Guard sword.
It is done. At long last. My magnum opus is complete. I will be king.
I raced it over to the castle and got a whopping 18,000 guild tokens in return. Now, if you don't mind me, I would like to see the king.
Well, the tokens are cool and all. I kind of would like to go up there, but I'm assuming you're the sole cause. You and your beaten broccoli that I can't go further up. And, yeah, what's funny enough is I don't even have enough of these freaking farming tokens to even buy the seeds for these. Like, what do you want from me?
I took my coins with me and out of pure frustration decided to buy the Hydro Prospector vehicle. Then to really flex on the royal family, I scooped up every dig site on the map. Time to see what sorts of chaos we could unleash. But first, most importantly, on day 99, I took the final relic to the cave, curious as to if anything would happen.
Well, here goes nothing. Oh, secrets of the cave. Oh, that was an achievement. Hello. Oh, booty, my favorite. Ha, it's a whole treasure chest just for me. I guess this is like a special decor piece for the base. Well, that's nice. You know what? I'm kind of happy. I don't know how I'm gonna take this whole thing home, but I'm happy. That's nice.
The value of this chest is 68,000. I kind of wish it had 1,000 more, but we can't have everything in life, I guess. The rest of the day was spent unloading all of the valuables from our factory and sold it all for an unfathomably great amount of wealth, which I used to buy a lot of nukes. All of day 100 was spent building the greatest nuclear testing site this island had ever seen, and all of this was done over some shitty broccoli soup.
My lovelies, we have gathered here this fine evening, not only to celebrate the end of the 100 days, but also to send a message. That's right, the nobles hiding away in their castle have denied me access to the royal chambers over some silly broccoli soup. To that I say, to the nobility and power, thy message is clear. However, the last laugh will be mine, as I have amassed 1.5 million coins worth of nuclear armaments to send this filthy island back into the Stone Ages. So, meine Lieben, with Bessie as our witness, and without any further ado, let the fireworks begin! Yes! Let's go! Can I throw myself into it? Ah! But there it goes. The rumbles of war have begun. It keeps going too. The amount of nuclear radiation that this island is now going to go under is absolutely unfathomable. And I feel like the only place for refuge left for anyone on this island is to head on over to Volcano Island out in the distance.
And thus, on my 101st day, I was ready to head across the great open sea. So I popped on over to the docks where the ship would take me to the continent of Volcalidus. There is only one catch, that is that I can't take anything along with me, so we have to start from scratch. So without dilly-dallying, we set sail, leaving this wretched place for, in this case, whiter pastures. Upon my arrival at this winter wonderland, I realized that the royal family's grubby little grasp also reached over here.
Hello? Are you the king? Excuse me.
The royal guard here explains that we need to rebuild a place called Nugget, but buddy, I just got here for all I know. This could be it. Can you point me in the direction at least? He also mentions that there's only one jeweler on the continent at the moment, which is right here at the docks, so we're gonna have to be extra nice to this one. Also, the machines here don't all work on water as they used to. Instead, they use lava here. As for my first task of this adventure, I am to bring a crate to a place called Dawn's Rest, putting me straight to work. I see how it is, but don't get too comfy. I'm gonna be the new king of this land, just to watch. Thankfully, the Royal Highness was kind enough to provide me with a royal steed and a map, so I now can figure out where we are and where we need to go. We find ourselves in the northeastern coast, and as for this new glade that they want to rebuild, yeah, well, it is located smack dab in the middle of a river of lava. It is quite apparent that the general populace might not be the brightest bunch, and we can probably blame the king for not investing enough of taxpayer coins into actual education, but that is a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. First things first though, we gotta deliver this crate, so I passed through an icy canyon, and once I exited the other side, was greeted by a marvelous view from the foot of the volcano. Right nearby, I found a camp with a person named Elsie, who sat near the campfire. She is the contact person to who I am to give the crate at Dawn's Rest, which is where we are. In return, we got some hydrocoin and are immediately tasked to bring another box to someone else, this time to someone located in Nugget. I didn't realize that I signed up to be an UPS driver, but it is paying kind of okay-ish, so I guess we'll take it. I trekked on as the sun began to set, and on the horizon spotted a bubble dome of sorts, and upon closer inspection concluded that the people here seem to be using some fancy new magical technology. In my humble opinion though, I'm pretty sure they never heard about the real estate term location, location, location. Entering the bubble dome, it seems like it's used to keep the temperatures here stable, and inside I handed the package over to Mayor Osbert, who was standing in front of the town's museum. After he hands us our payment and thanks us, we were tasked to bring over another crate to a place called Burville, which is a bit further out west. We're gonna put a pin on that task though, as for now, I wanted to explore the shops, and with that, the items that they carried, as Papa's gonna have to get his hands quite dirty. We need to rebuild our entire automated drilling facility. After viewing all the products and getting myself updated on them, I wandered into the museum, where I noted that we can hand in hydrosaur bones that we find to eventually assemble a full-fledged skeleton, and even get paid for it in this continent's unique currency, which is marked with a snowflake.
So you're the Hydroneer everyone's been chatting about.
My reputation precedes me. I took an extended peek around town at night and came across what seemed to be their temperature regulator in the middle. There's also a curious new gemstone in this region from what I can see on the stock market board, which kind of looks like a diamond. That did raise the question for me though, what other new resources are we going to uncover on this continent, and how is that going to affect our automated production construction? On day 2, I charted my course to Burville, which led me towards the west coast. And as I'm traveling, I think we can all admit the game has beautiful scenery, even though the graphics aren't, let's say, the greatest. It kind of scratches that old school vibe, but doesn't have bad resolution. Does that make sense? I feel like that makes sense. So through the fresh, snowy biomes, I traveled until I reached Burville, which is a quaint and comfy little town. The package was handed over to a person named Frederick, who requested another crate to be brought to a place he calls the Shattered Outpost, which is located all the way on over at the southeastern coast. And the only way that I can see to reach it from here is through a place that is covered in fog, so I'm gonna put a hold on that for now. As first things first, I need to inspect what goodies this town has for sale before I move on, and I could see that I could buy igloo-looking structure pieces to build a house and a massively overpriced trophy, which costs 99,999 of this region's tokens. I'm going to aim to get that, but I have my doubts, but I do want to use it to flex. Another shop was selling frost-watered powered machines, and I was under the impression that everything here was going to run on lava, but I guess not. To avoid getting ahead of myself though, I decided to scout the northern part of the island and find a cheap place for me to settle down and start off with the essentials. During my travels, I ended up back at Newglade, where I had just enough coins to buy my first lava drill and harvester. As I was leaving, the vendor told me that more machines could be forged at the volcano's peak, likely similar to the dwarven cave from the base game. My pursuit of property led me back to where it all began, as I assumed there was a free plot of land called Lumberton Bluff in the vicinity. To reach this quarry, I had to drive up a couple of wooden ramps and saw that this place oversaw the entire ocean, which I do like. And I realized though that I was mistaken. This quarry isn't free, but it is for sale for not too much coin. Thing is though, I'm broke, so I can't even afford this, so I do need a free plot of land. However, turns out this Dawn Rest place that I visited at the start is the only free mining spot, so this is where we're gonna set up shop. And well, my lovelies, you already know what that means. Since we're starting from scratch, it's time to use a shovel, pan, and physical labor. This brings back memories, I tell you. I used my prior knowledge though and dunked the ice into the lava. How this doesn't melt the pan is beyond me though. Must be made of some type of vibranium or something, but hey, it works. I don't make the rules here. During my initial grind for minerals, I came across a new one called Hardstone. After more tedious laborious work, I returned to the dock and sold my stuff to the only jeweler at sundown. This money was then brought on over to the vendor that sells lava pipes. This is where I bought my first couple of tubes, and I spent all of my hard-earned cash down to the last penny. I'd say calculated, but that was just sheer luck. As I was returning to base, I saw a Hydrosaur rib sticking out of the ground. I wonder what kind of monstrosities we're going to construct in time. Either way, with my new set of tubes, I made my way on over to home base and started to set up the foundation, the groundwork of what is going to be our first mining system. I realized at dawn of day 3 though that I didn't have enough tubing, so I had no other choice but to shovel more ice until my back gave out. However, I was sure to shovel out places that I needed to clear out anyways for the harvester. Once I figured I had enough ore, I went on over to the docks, sold my minerals to the jeweler, and then bought the remaining lava tubes that I needed and got my first automated system up and running. The profits were slowly rolling in, but we are definitely going to be looking at upscaling. And our adventure is starting off strong, as by the end of the day, we got our first uncut gemstone. I let the contraption run until day 4. This is when I separated my valuables for safekeeping, sold the remaining stuff for a quick buck, and bought some things like a furnace and crucible combo, and extra pans, an anvil, mold, and lastly a scale. With these new purchases set up back at my base, I'm free to make ingots whenever I please. While more funds were being generated with the drill, I went to all the towns that we had visited prior and tried to gather all the item requisitions that I could find, as these will help me get those special tokens which I need to start hoarding like a goblin. And well, I later figured out that this currency is called Scout Guild tokens. I later handed in the fossil that I uncovered to the museum by simply dropping the bone into this box at the front of the display, and presto, we have our first 100 Scout tokens. Now if only we can find more.
You good?
Okay. Once I had collected a hefty amount of these paper scrolls, I scaled the volcano to see what I would need to craft more machines up there. This also gave me a grand view of the shattered coast in the distance with lava ducts leading towards it. I wonder what that's for. A massive elevator helped me reach the summit, where I discovered a high-tech forge, likely built by old dwarves. Now this is really nice and all, but I do still need blueprints to craft anything to start with, so we'll come back here once I figure out where to buy said recipes. In the later parts of the evening, I got back home and was reminded of the constant issues that we tried to avoid in our previous videos. The machines simply keep breaking down. I'm going to need to find a quick way to build up my auto repair circuits once again. And so, the fifth day began with a massive sale of minerals, giving me my first stack of 1,000 Hydro coins. Since I'm at the docks shop, I got myself some spanners and a filter hook. I then slapped on the filter onto the tube, repaired the machine, and so with production now rebooted, I loaded up the crates bound for the Shattered Outpost and set out to deliver it while also keeping an eye out for buyable logic parts. I remember dreading the use of these items, but I quite simply cannot live without them, especially for the auto repair systems. I wasn't able to find a shop for these pieces in Newglade, however, I figured out that you can purchase the production of new stores on empty plots, so maybe eventually one will be built here. While I was then traveling back and forth in search for one, I was reminded once again of the sore feet that I had gained on the last video. Just like old Bessie, this truck needed to be filled up to run again. So I went on foot to get my pan. During my expedition, I encountered another hydroskeleton skull, which made me very joyous. Once I was back with my pan full of lava, I filled up the noble steed and then traveled to the dock to gather my money. And so with heavier pockets, returned back to Newglade to begin some much needed shop building. I ended up buying all 3 tier 1 construction crates too. First, we plopped down a jeweler shop, and to complete it, we need a hardstone block weighing 40 kilograms, and then after an iron bar weighing 50. Up next was a tier 1 store, which needed 20 kilograms of hardstone and 30 kilograms of iron. And lastly, a ticket office, which requires 180 kilograms of hardstone and 200 of iron, plus 10 kilograms of Cloutium. We can't get Cloutium just yet, but we'll get there eventually. There were 2 more higher tier construction crates that I could buy too, I just lacked the funds for them at this time. I decided to keep looking for a logic shop though right after. The upside to this search was that I was becoming a master archaeologist with the number of bones that I was finding. I later finally found a shop that sold some logic parts, but it didn't have the ones needed to make an auto repair circuit, as this isn't a fully dedicated shop for it. So stumped, I just went back to Newglade to deposit the ungodly amount of bones that I had uncovered, which turned out to be a total of 9, making me only 1 short of our next museum token bonus. Driving into day 6, I found 1 last Hydrosaur rib to hand in and cashed out 1,000 scout tokens. I'll be hoarding these like a dragon for that special flex trophy, and as for the next item requisition, the museum ward requests 24 bones for an even larger payday of 3,000. So I gotta keep my eyes peeled. After making 1 quick stop back at base, I decided it was high time to leave for the Shattered Outpost. I drove along the east coast, seeing icy cliffs and another quarry called Cinder Footing. This one also needs coins to be unlocked though, so there are no more free dig sites available by the looks of things. As I was driving along this icy terrain, I pondered my previous video and came to the conclusion that if my last truck was called Old Bessie, then this one has to be called Big Bertha. With her, we reached the Shattered Outpost, which has a Hobson's Powerworks inside, just what I was looking for. Plus, I got to hand in that delivery package to cash out a little reward. I think the fetch quests are now over though, as I have not been given another package for delivery. And thus, the greatest Uber known to date has retired. I had a look around the outpost and came across another quarry here called Shattered Breach, which is so far my favorite looking one too. Also, a little side note, I will be gathering bones whenever I find them, and as to not keep repeating myself, I'll just let y'all know how many I hand in when I do so. After scouring the market at the logic shop, I realized that I couldn't afford anything here. I'm still completely broke, so I made my way on back and sold my accumulated ores for a pretty penny. Moving on into day 7, I took this wad of cash to the logic vendor and bought everything that I needed to build up 1 auto repair circuit. Once I had these things back at base, I quickly assembled the rig and dumped enough spanners into the sling for me to be rid of those minimal grinding tasks for a good while. For real though, I am so glad that we're being this efficient early on. Up next, I just had to deal with the overflow situation. Keeping everything tidy was proving to be quite difficult, so I decided to polish up the ore hole right here. This was much more difficult than anticipated though, as the terrain did not want to behave. First at midnight, I got things working again, but honestly, not much was improved upon. So, logically, on day 8, I just kept working at it. I got it slightly improved, but this isn't going to be foolproof until we also get an automated sorting system in place, so we know what our next step is. I headed into town to search for the resources that I would need for such a project and concluded that I would need to make a frost water system for the conveyor belts. So I traveled some more to find ice melting parts to get this machine on going. As I was traveling from shop to shop, I kept forgetting though where I left my money, which resulted in me searching for it like a headless chicken.
Did I forget my money somewhere? Oh, now I don't know which shop I left my money at. Please tell me it was this one.
Haha! Whew, saved by the bell. Okay, I was a little bit low on cash, but I had accrued enough by nightfall to purchase the ice melter. So I was joyous as I returned back to base, but here's where I noticed my machine was once again broken. I had kind of forgotten that each filter that I put on betters the quality of liquid in this case by only 20%, so I'm going to need to build an additional 4 circuits just to not have to worry that the facility is pumping out ores at all times. So having realized this, I shifted my focus once again and decided that this was the most pressing issue. So on the morning of day 9, I bought the parts for one of these additional circuits. This part is seriously pricey though. At least this would give me more wiggle room in between maintenance on the machines. After building up that second circuit, I was especially broke, so I hesitantly sold my stash of gemstones that I had accumulated, which were intended to be used on item requisitions once I got to that, but here we are. And then just kind of waited for more ore to be pumped out. So I started to plan out where the conveyor belt system would go on since I had nothing better to do. In doing so, my digging gave me the opportunity to also help the harvester with some more materials to munch on. I've become the second drill for now. I did this until sunset and sold my ores for a nifty bit of moolah. Day 10 had me digging out the spot where the ice melter would go, once I had purchased it that is. While I was completing my daily duties, I noticed that my system would need some serious reworking though. I would need to move the whole thing once to the left and once backwards. So off to the shops I went for some extra parts. And so I bought some extension tubing and a pressure tank to ensure that my system would be pressurized even if I made more expansions down the line. I then returned and got straight to work extending out the reach of my machinery. This was surprisingly difficult though. My neurons were tearing at the seams in doing this. First at dusk, the system was moved and was up and running once more. Now I could finally focus on making that conveyor belt sorting system without any hindrance. I even got the ice melter hooked up too at this time. So my plan was to just make a straight tube line in front for the conveyor belts, but here's where I saw that this machine has a spot for a logic hookup. So my plans are fumbled once more as this doesn't fit. With all that in mind, on day 11, I decided to extend the system by one more block to make room for the logic switch. While I was doing this, I noticed something quite curious though. The dripping lava coming from the vacant tube is slowly melting the ice below. It's quite realistic, I gotta say. I then made a quick sale of the ore that had accumulated over this time and bought both the logic switch and as well the very needed extra instance of auto repair circuit pieces. After purchasing the stuff and returning back to base, I hooked it all up in a flash. And after a brief inspection, the system fully works. However, I do need to find a way to feed the ice melter with ice, obviously. That probably means that we're going to need another drill purely for that purpose. I then did have to do some shopping for another filter and, of course, spanners, but here's where I spotted that the tier 1 kit symbol to build a shop in New Glade looked similar to the symbols used on the tier 1 drilling machines from the base game. So maybe if I build this shop, I can fix my semi-progression lock. To build the shop with said kit, I'm going to need 20 kilograms of hardstone and 30 kilograms of iron. So for this purpose, logically, I purchased the hardstone refiner and a logic keypad, and with them, returned back home. By the end of the day, I had the refiner set up and was ready to put it to work. So as for day 12, I was manually filling up the refiner, but it was quite tedious, even for a person as stubborn as me, that I went to the shops, bought myself a magnet stick, and brute forced my way through to a 20-kilogram bar of hardstone. I then used the remaining iron nuggets that I had on hand and easily forged myself a 30-kilogram bar. Also, I have read all of your comments and realized that the weight requirements don't mean you have to have the exact weight. They're simply a minimum requirement per task. Thank you all so very much for helping my dumb ass out. I then zipped on over to the shop and presto, in the blink of an eye, inserted the materials into the designated crate, and thus the shop appeared. Now, drill schematics and terrain altering tools are at our fingertips. I ended up purchasing a tier 1 lava drill as well as an ice rake. And, well, the remaining recipes from the shop included ore that I do not have, so until I get that sorted, this shop doesn't completely solve my early game problems. These problems, though, were easily forgotten, as I could finally tidy up my base with this nifty new rake that I purchased. Also, after setting up the new lava drill, the ice melter was being completely filled up to the brim. So on day 13, after many side quests, I could finally focus on the base's sorting system. After filling my pockets with money, I bought some supplies and worked on the initial layout. And so after spending all day digging, placing, and testing, we were slowly getting somewhere. It isn't done just yet, but we now have a conveyor track with 3 sorters. We even pre-purchased a logic saw for when we need it. On day 14, I watched as my machines hummed in unison while I waited for funds to be generated again, so I dabbled with improving my hardstone refiner and then ended up with a design that saved me some tubes. Now it's more cost efficient, which is always a big plus. Using this time wisely, I also cleaned up the little messes that I had left behind while working on the base. After everything was all tidy again, I drove to Newglade and figured out what I needed to build a jeweler here. Turns out it's 40 kilograms of hardstone and 50 kilograms of iron, which is totally doable. After I whipped up both of those ingredients, I sprinted back to Newglade and built the shop in what I would call record time. Now that I have a jeweler here in Newglade, my trips to the docks would become less frequent. As for the ticket office though, that needs Cloutium, of which I have none thus far, so I will have to wait until we get some of that. I then made my first sale to the new jeweler in this town, and I'm looking forward to selling him a lot of my minerals in the upcoming days, as I want to gain a total of 7,000 hydrocoin for some upcoming expenditures. Day 15 was used as a filler day to explore and search for random fossils. During my travels, I encountered a large-scale drill that seemed broken down and abandoned, though. It needs a lot of materials to become operational again, but I'm intrigued by what will happen once we repair it. I then searched for fossils for the entire day, and so first by sundown, I went back to the museum, handed in all the bones that I had, and claimed my 3,000 scout token reward. But it just keeps on coming. The museum board is now offering 5 grand in tokens. Whoever is funding this museum must be pretty wealthy. I'm glad that I came back to Newglade too, though, as I have been blind up until now for some reason, as there was another lava drill available in the shop this whole time. So don't mind me, I'm just gonna buy this real quick. I wasted no time at all with this in hand. I rushed back home and set it up immediately, and thus, in a flash, I had it hooked up and directed it to my singular harvester. On the morning of day 16 is when I sold the ores that the dig site had accumulated and received a whopping 4,000 coins. Very nice. I used a smidge of this ever-growing money pile to buy the tier 2 store construction crate, but as expected, this thing also needs Cloutium. We are seriously going to need to find a better quarry soon. After waiting some more and then selling some ore, at long last my money had reached 7,000. I then went with that stack to the logic shop to buy the 2 remaining auto repair circuits that I needed. I also went to the docks for the first time in a good while and used the leftover money that I didn't use on the circuits to buy an absolutely abhorrent amount of spanners along with the 2 last filters for the entire rig. Day 17 revolved around setting up the contraptions and filling them with said spanners. As long as they don't run out, nothing should break here anymore. I am very happy with this basic system for now, so I think it's time for me to expand. Throughout the day, I proceeded to sell stuff until I had enough hydrocoins to buy the Lumberton Bluff Quarry. The reason why I bought this particular quarry is because of how flat and large it is. Plus, its lava is easily accessible, and by looking at my map and triangulating some distances, it's a pretty short walk between here to Newglade, the Logic Shop, and the volcano. About the move though, I want my machines to be as efficient as possible, so I will reversely deconstruct and reconstruct this rig. First, I'll be moving the major conveyor belts, then the ice melter, and then the drills and harvester. As I'm preparing for the move, I'll explain that I'm going through all of this because I hope to get some cloutium in this new quarry because it is a paid quarry, and here I can dig deeper than I could at Dawn's Rest. Hopefully, with that, we will progress even faster. To get to a deeper ice level for better ore, I bought a pickaxe and plan to kind of make a Seaman Factory 2.0.
Exactly sure how I'm going to build my main base of operations here. All I know is I want to use a corner from where I start the build. My brain is just telling me if I have like a semi 90-degree angle, I know it's not 90 degrees, shut up. If I kind of have that going, I have easier access points for lava intakes should I need more for more power. So I'm going to probably just start digging around this general area deep enough from the ledge, because I want to go deep with this build. I want cloutium, and I'm going to have better chances of that deeper down. So it's likely going to be an L shape around here, as Big Bertha is showing off, and then vice versa that way at as a 90-degree angle. Exactly how it's going to look like, I'm not sure. I was thinking I was going to copy the old build, but that ain't happening. So let's get to work.
I spent an extensive part of day 18 simply mapping out the terrain of my plan, and during all of this, I didn't have a care in the world, as I knew that my facility at Dawn's Rest was working at full capacity throughout this time.
Okay, so after an extensive amount of prospecting, I've come to a conclusion. I'm not sure if this is logical, but hear me out. Right here, I started to see for the depths, and at these certain points where the curve starts is where there's a dip where it goes much deeper all of a sudden on both sides. So this is generally a pretty solid 90-degree angle that I dug out, and I'm assuming that as long as I kind of avoid this imaginary angle of 90 degrees, as in this little patch here, I should be fine with not encountering height issues. So I'll be building everywhere and anywhere, excluding that section right there. Which just now sparks an idea. If there's a 90-degree angle that I just dug out, and this area I don't want to have drills at, I could probably make a really cool entrance right from here, right down the middle, and then kind of make a symmetrical system. I think it's gonna look really great. I kind of have it in my mind. I want to make this one look good. The one we had in the last video, it was a shack. It was as intended. This I want to make look like an actual facility.
With that master plan in mind, I decided to buy some building blocks for the initial outline. Over time, I hope that we get to build a castle here. After much pondering, I also devised a name for this place. Considering that we need to cross a bridge to the Lumberton Quarry, we shall call it New Lumbridge. If you know, you know. Going into the next day, I dug all the way down to firm ground, which is the depth of Tier 2. The thing is though, hollowing this place out for a efficient mining rig is very slow, and I'm going to need solutions, so I decided that I needed to go to find the vehicle shop. It is on the little break-off island called Mott's Island, so it's a bit far away. The only way to get there though is to take a boat ride from Barron's Harbor. On my way on over there, I was driving through a deserted terrain where all the trees seemed to be dead. It's giving scary vibes for what this game can provide as scary. I'm kind of interested though of what supposedly happened in this region. As soon as I got to the harbor, I parked on top of the ferry, but I couldn't set sail to Mott's Island. Seems like I'm going to have to build a ticket office over at Newglade before I can hitch a boat ride, but I'm not really sure. We'll have to prove that concept first. One thing was clear though, going into day 20, I was in desperate need of some cloutium, as I was stuck without it. Stumped on how to solve this issue, as I'm semi-soft locked without it, I decided to go ahead with my plan to disassemble my rig at Dawn's Rest and reassemble it back at New Lumbridge. I started with the conveyor belts and the ice melter as I intended, which allowed me to use all 3 drills for resources. They're not sorted, but the cash is slowly flowing. I then bought an extra lava intake and pressure tank so as to not use the ones already in use at Dawn's Rest, and a boatload of lava tubing. All these new parts were then put to use immediately to build an entirely new system at New Lumbridge. And so by sunset, I finally built one of the intake tubes, which is aimed to eventually reach the depth of Tier 2. And so, the only thing left to do is to hollow out the entire area where my machines are going to go, which meant that I would be spending a whole lot of time down here. And so I just swung my pick into day 21. It took me a considerable amount of elbow grease to make an underground platform at the correct height, but with my vision slowly coming together, I left to purchase more tubing to bring said tubing system to the correct level. And seriously, I cannot stress enough how much digging this was with an uncertain form of a plan, but I guess there had to be some semblance of a plan in my mind, right? Right? Now that the tubing was all the way there and the platform was sort of set, I returned to Dawn's Rest and quickly retrieved the 3 drills and the harvester. I then hastily loaded them onto Big Bertha and zoomed on back to New Lumbridge. Once I got there, I immediately set them up so that the machines had as little downtime as possible. And thus, by the morning of day 22, the triple drill setup was operational, and thankfully, it was chucking out much larger chunks, which had me very pleased. And we know that it's working correctly, so now I won't lose money by the minute and can set up the rest of the sorting system in peace, knowing that the cash is flowing. Hopefully, this is the last time that I have to move to another quarry, because this is a whole lot of work. After much deliberation, I realized that transferring my auto repair circuit would have to be the next on my priority list, so the rest of the day was spent deconstructing, transferring, and building it back up. At day's end, I popped inside the facility and noticed that a broken harvester had caused some major overflow issues. Those issues were quickly resolved, thankfully, on day 23 after I rushed into town for some spanners. This also is where I was told of a marvelous revelation.
On all team. This, if we can reach them.
Oh, you cleared up my suspicions, my guy. Broski just... Oh, dude, the weight you lifted off my shoulders is astronomical. Thank you. These drills work on all tiers. I was perplexed where to get other drill recipes because there was like a different one over there. So I'm happy. My day is made. After I repaired the harvester, I turned all the machines back on and decided to do a tiny bit of cleanup. This is where I realized that at the base level, we had only been digging ice until now. And so now, at this level, we're also digging up frost rocks. Apparently, the ice melter doesn't like frost rocks, so we'll have to find a way to sort and separate these two. Another fantastic thing caught my eye as well. After sorting through the random ores, I noticed little chunks of cloutium intermingled in the rest. We have hit the jackpot. Now it is finally time to work on my sorting system, complete with all the bits and bobs. So for day 24, I focused purely on that conveyor belt sorting system that I wanted to have implemented so long ago. And first things first for this, I tried to be as efficient as possible and dug out a channel for the conveyor belts to run the items down on. And y'all can thank the magic of editing that you don't have to see all the time-consuming manual labor that goes into this. And let me tell you, this enormous project is going to need much more tubing and conveyors. So I quickly picked up a pan filled with what I regarded as junk and left to sell it to the jeweler. Once I got there, though, I realized how gravely I was mistaken. I now have enough money to buy everything that I could possibly need, so that was a pleasant surprise. We are doing leaps and bounds better than the first 100 days, that's just straight up facts. And the good news doesn't stop there, as sure, I had to buy a couple of extra parts here and there, but I can reuse most of the stuff from the old base, so I'm glad that I thought of that. Once I returned back to New Lumbridge at nightfall, I began to assemble the sorting system. It's been a long time coming. While putting it together, I hit a bit of a snag though. I saw all of these loose ores just piling up on the conveyor belt, so
I had to turn it all off, remove the ore, and try to figure out what the heck was going on here. On day 25, I realized how terribly I had actually messed up. During building all this, I didn't fully take into consideration the ice for the ice melter nor the pressure tank for the tubing of the conveyors. So yeah, this fix used most of the day as I needed to dig extra access pathways to my otherwise very compact rig. And since I was already making some improvements all around, I figured we might as well go and buy some smelters. If we are sorting the ore, we might as well have them auto smelt in that process. And so this shopping spree had me ending off the day in Burville, where I bought the final pieces to our puzzle. I returned from my shopping expedition on the morning of day 26 and started placing the things that I purchased into their rightful spots.
Look at the other ones. They're encrusted into the permafrost. And yet you refuse.
This game does have its fair share of janky mechanics, but I think that's why we all love it. Depending on how you look at an object that decides which of Newton's laws, in this case, it wants to defy and with that accept. So first, at about noon, I got to boost the pressure tank with a shard and fired the system back up.
Okay, so things are technically working. I'm gonna come back to the problem here in a second, but essentially, 2 drills are giving us ore, it's getting polished if it's a gem. If it's an ore that needs smelting, it automatically gets put into an auto smelter, and eventually once I get the gems like these, I'm gonna make them get, sorted into their own respective pans. So that means like emerald, sapphire, ruby, diamond, and then in the end there's just gonna be onyx. So that's all good in the world, that's fine. I have a lot of stuff to dump onto this rig. However, the problem lies with the fact of how deep we are. You see this? See this stuff? It's pumping out frost rocks aside normal ice. You see, that was ice, and that makes the system go. No problems. But it doesn't always give us ice, which makes the system not run all the time until this were to fill up with water. So what I need to do is either set this dude up much higher and funnel the ice down, figure something out that way, or just sort that frost rocks go in that hole, which now that I say it out loud is probably the better idea, because that way I'm getting extra ore as well. We'll see. This requires fixing. Further analysis required.
After a careful examination of all of my drills, I figured that they must all produce ice. That means I need to restructure everything again so that the ice can go into the ice melter and the frost rocks can go into the harvester. What kind of a mess have I gotten myself into? With all this on my mind, I moved into day 27. I had no real clue on what to do though. I decided to buy a couple of lava-powered hand sorters first off, as they don't need water to run. Setting these up though had their fair share of challenges, as my sleep-deprived was not ready to handle this task at all. This game's organizational systems are entirely wasted on someone as dense as I. I decided that I was going to make a staircase with these hand sorters. That kind of made sense at the time. I don't know. At this point, I take anything to get this working correctly and automatically. Every semblance of a plan was falling apart though on day 28. I was trying to place stuff from different angles, but the hand sorters didn't want to be placed in certain spaces, and I was starting to lose my mind. After much tinkering, I realized that 90% of my issues though were solved by using these solid structures underneath them to at least get them placed. You can remove them later on. And man, with that figured out, praise the Lord, I started placing things and reasoning with myself on where everything should be shooting off to. After a little while, I had the base structure down, which was great. While I fry more of my neurons, though, I must admit that it is considerably more complicated to set up systems when you need both lava and water. It changes it entirely, if that wasn't evident thus far. At least it's said now. On the morning of day 29, I was anxious about losing out on more profits, so I turned the valve to the pipes so that at least one drill would be producing something at all times. With the hand sorters that I implemented, I was now able to put frost rocks into the harvester and dump ice into the melter by hand for now. Much to my PC's dismay, I was now able to perform some much needed cleanup action. And after all that was said and done, I was significantly happier as my workspace was nice and tidy. On the morning of day 30, I started by sorting the pan of ores from my previous base into their respective trays. It's all coming along so nicely now, but I gotta stay focused. My next step was to set up the remaining 2 drills, and with that, a more stable way to feed the ice melter. So on I went, placing things all over the place, honestly thinking that I was making things much, much worse with every piece that I placed. However, towards the evening, I was very pleased that the second drill was up and running. It does feel nice to slowly but surely feel like your base is becoming operational and with that, efficient. Scratches a certain itch in my brain. On day 31, I started by molding a bit of snow to create a platform for the final drill to stand on, and then subsequently hooked up a lava connection to it. First in the afternoon, I ended up having the final drill up and running, and there are a couple of issues with our current build, starting with the fact that this one hand sorter did not want to toss the resources into the right place as much as I tried to force it to, but thankfully, I can mold snow. And although this works, it kind of feels like just putting duct tape on the problem, but then again, if duct tape isn't solving your problems, you're just not using enough of it. Also, all the drills are now separating ice from the frost rocks, which is fantastic. I just don't have any idea how to get all of the ice transported to the ice melter. Solving this conundrum was more about tubing efficiency than anything else though. I worked for the remainder of the day rerouting certain tubes to fit the schematics in my brain. Yet I stumbled into more problems on day 32, but this is how I decided that I would fix them. I pulled the ice melter out by 1 block and manually filled it with ice for now. I then set up new ice tubes to make a self-feeding system for the ice melter. That meant the tubes needed to go by every sorter, pick up the ice, and then dump it back into the ice melter so the conveyor belts can keep moving. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. The solution was within my grasp. So, day 33 started with a quick shopping run for some spanners and obviously tubing. After returning back to base, I worked on getting everything together and was finally, at long last, ready to test this contraption.
Alright, so I don't know what iteration of all this we're at right now. I have lost track. Things have gotten much more streamlined. I'm aware it could use some improvements still, but essentially, lava come down, go to ice melter. It sections itself off to power conveyor belts first and foremost to bring ice to feed itself, as we've established. It seems to be working as one drill dumps everything right at the tip, and of the other 2 drills, they accumulate kind of over here consistently, so it should feed ice into itself, then also have enough to continue powering the actual conveyor belt. So I think without any further ado, it's time to let this thing rip, or else my computer's gonna implode from all the cubes that it's accumulating. So yeah, here we go. If I could. Come on. Uh-oh. Okay, a little bit of a mishap on my part. There we go, and boom. Okay, cool. Magnet stick to save the day. Don't want to lose out on all this ice. There we go, that is juicy. All right, so we have no much stragglers to speak of. And everything is flowing as intended. Would you look at that? Now, the only thing that can go wrong is if we don't get enough ice to keep pumping this consistently. But based on the level that it's at, I think we are okay. Only time will tell, though.
With everything running smoothly and automatically, this was the perfect opportunity to clean up again, as fixing the rig had been a nightmare. In the early morning of day 34, I went on a shopping run and noticed that all housing parts were available at this one shop at the Shattered Outpost for regular hydrocoin. So I'll remember to purchase things there once I build my castle, but for now, I decided the most pressing matter was to build a staircase to get in and out of this hellhole that I created. And yes, I know it looks very simple, because it is, but by God does it make a difference to my mental health. I noticed also that the ice melter was using a little bit more ice than was being replenished, so I installed a valve and would henceforth be switching it on and off to ensure the ice melter doesn't ever entirely run out of ice.
I even found the time to restructure the tubes so that I don't smash my forehead onto them whenever I want to check on something. Once night had fallen, I used a construction hammer and locked in the stuff that I never intended to move again, and brought in my new scale down to the heart of my base to do some inventory checks. I have accumulated a total of 5,600 kilograms of iron, which made me enormously happy, as well as 200 kilograms of cloutium, which means our progression softlock will be no more. On day 35 is when I got some remaining crafting pieces situated in the base, like the Hearthstone refiner, which was set up in a jiffy, and the other being a logic saw, which had me extending my conveyor belt system. By evening, everything was up and running, and I was so close to fulfilling the billions of orders that we had collected up until now, but in my haste of building, I forgot that I needed to add a gem compressor instead of just leaving them all willy-nilly in these buckets, so that is one more thing that we need to add before moving on to the item requisitions. On day 36, after a good bit of remodeling and a fantastic shopping spree, we're all set. And once I returned from the shop, I realized that the gem compressor runs on lava. That is mildly upsetting and kind of changes my plans, honestly. I spent the rest of the day branching off from the main lava line, connecting that to the new gem compressor, and placing that square between the ice melter and the Hearthstone refiner. For day 37, I literally just let my machines run as I watched them, all in preparation for the biggest crafting session known to man. I'm assuming these are going to be using up a lot of my resources, so we might as well be at the ready. On day 38, while still waiting on resources to accumulate, I quickly popped on over to the abandoned drill to see what the requirements were to repair it. And actually, completing this took no effort at all. Completing an order like this was a complete breeze. The only thing standing in our way, though, from fulfilling this is my PC's innate ability to stutter when loading all of these loose ores, but honestly, I can't blame it. This thing runs a 4090 and I just f***ed up the game so hard that not even this can handle it. So yeah, my PC froze and subsequently crashed the game. I might need to take a different approach to this. That seems logical. So after booting back into the game, I repositioned myself and put them in individually. And yes, that is as tedious as it sounds.
Yeah, this is it. We're talking. Oh, it may not be automatic, but this is the step up.
In a brief session, the 800 kilogram brick of hardstone was created, and thus moved on to putting the iron through the logic saw and cut off 1,200 kilograms. These two items were put together into the back of the truck and brought to the abandoned drill. With the click of a singular button, it was repaired, and it turns out it is an old miner that spits out little nuggets whenever you press the button. From what I gathered, as long as I click this button, it'll keep shooting out these nuggets forever? Definitely not what I would call passive income, though. I'll just leave the pan here and see if it generates nuggets over time. Up next, I visited Newglade. There I made a list of the requirements for the 2 remaining shops, and thus returned back home to get these items prepared. And of course, these are the first projects where we actually need cloutium, so our invested time, money, and effort into our new base is finally going to show its fruits. In one last movement to prep the Hearthstone, I almost had my PC freeze again on me, but luckily, I saved my PC from bricking itself by making a ton of bricks, oddly enough, because, less ores prevent PC from imploding. Either way, with all the resources at my fingertips, I built up the ticket office first, and as expected, it sells tickets for tokens, so this must be where I buy tickets for the ferry to Mott's Island, where I can get vehicles. To end off the day, we built the shop labeled Tier 2, inside of which was another lava drill, but this one had to be purchased with Scout Guild tokens. A little bit of a bummer. On day 39, I continued looking through the goods that the shops had to offer, and among their many wares, I did notice other tools and recipes, some needing core stone. For now, I bought the 3 terrain tools though at Tier 2, so this is going to help us a lot back home. I also saw an item called the Lava Thaw Booster, which seems like an equipable item for a vehicle of sorts, so I bought a ferry ticket as I intend to head over to Mott's Island anyways and see what rides they have for sale. But before going on my cruise, I had a few things that I needed to wrap up first. One of them was to get the hardstone refiner to refine automatically at the sorter so that I can leave without worrying that everything is going to go kablooey. This is also where the tier 2 terrain tools come in handy. I might be living in a hole, but that does not mean that my living spaces need to be cramped. This setup was completed at sunset with a wraparound lava tube under the conveyor system. I'm still so glad that everything works like a charm and my PC is already thanking me. My second priority was to set up this new drill that I got from the shop, which surprisingly also went off without a hitch. We're doing fantastic! And as much as I would like to stand in awe of my creation, I still had that cruise in mind, so I made one last spanner shopping trip on day 40. How he lives, I don't know. He's got the human torch over here. Once back at base, restocked on spanners, I could now finally leave for Barron's Harbor, where I would take the ship to Mott's Island. So I was off, breezing through the fog, all the way to the clunky old boat. Here I parked Big Bertha on top and set sail through the seas. Once arrived at my destination, I followed a racetrack of sorts all the way to the dealership, where one of the vehicles stood out like a sore thumb. This thing is ginormous. Either way, vehicles of interest that this place has to offer is the lava roller to flatten surfaces, a speedy lava bike, and the lava thaw, which is used to tunnel through the ice. This is what the booster was for. As for Big Chungus over here, that is a lava hauler, a massive transport truck. And I want to buy all of them. I just can't afford any of them at this point in time, but I was able to do a lap around their racetrack, much to the dismay of Big Bertha's suspension, but at least our time is now on the board. At the twilight of day 41, I returned to the central island and arrived at the misty docks. I then went back home and started to grind out more item requisitions for Scout Guild tokens to afford the vehicles, and just for clarification, a single ticket is for the back and forth trip with the boat, and I had purchased 2. I still have a ticket in case I need to go again. To start off easy with the grinding session, I handed in all of the single ore item requisitions, and at about noon, I was done with all of these, so I completed more complex orders like jewelry in the afternoon. For those orders, the gem compressor was coming in really handy, I do gotta say. Also, to recap, many of these complex orders require you to forge 2 items together, for which you need a blacksmith hammer. So after airdropping Big Bertha into the docks in order to go and purchase one, was able to get back home by nightfall, where first, due to how the mechanics in this game work, had to heat up the bars before smashing them together with this new hammer, and voila! It is as pretty as can be, a true work of art created by yours truly. And thus, I proceeded to work like this throughout the entire night. On the morning of day 42, I handed in all of the completed tasks that were on my plate. As that went much faster than I had expected, I made my way around the map and searched for more orders. These new orders that I found were much, and I mean much higher payouts, and you're not gonna hear me complain about that. All them vehicles ain't gonna buy themselves, you know. On a more serious note, though, I am saving up for that lava thaw because I am thinking maybe fossils are hidden in the quarries because it's been a while since I found some, and that would kind of make sense with how relics worked in the base game. Either way, I was handing in requisition after requisition and accepting new ones, and for now, at least luckily, every single one was very juicy. The next day started off with something very minor but crucial to my sanity. I sold a 100 kilogram gold bar because I was very low on cash and had to buy some flooring. In my defense, this is a very important investment as I was getting motion sick from the up and down bobbing, okay? Either way, after spending some time on that, it was done, and thus I could keep working throughout the night on the orders that needed completing. So, day 44 was exciting. After I had handed in all of the newly crafted goodies, I landed a total of 7,800 scout tokens, which is, for me, quite a bit. I hauled this stack across the sea to the dealership where I purchased the Lava Thaw. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to war in this vehicle, not to go dig a hole, but I'm not complaining. Once I returned to the mainland, I drove the Lava Thaw back to base, sadly leaving Big Bertha behind. Once I reached New Lumbridge, the sunlight was fading, but the worst was yet to come, as I still needed to get Big Bertha on foot. Under the rising sun of day 45, Big Bertha and I were reunited. Now it's time to return and dig an even deeper floor for mining. But first things first, with my tier 2 tools, I made a surgical incision to see how deep we could go now.
Not too long after reaching the level that was desired, I started digging upwards to find where the lava thaw would need to enter. So after triangulating my point of attack, I began to descend.
This vehicle is the definition of Hans. Get the Flammenwerfer. Oh, but here's the thing. Okay, let's turn off the Flammenwerfer. It can only dig up to the depth of tier 1 because I haven't bought the I almost said the expansion. The extra boosty thingamajiggy. So I think we're gonna go buy that and then proceed to reach tier 2.
Little bit of an issue, but not to worry. A quick purchase of the thaw booster, and with it slapped onto the vehicle, we could just keep on digging. And while we're here, we might as well give this machine a name, because calling it the lava thaw is going to make my tongue fall off. So we shall call it Hans. So with Hans, I dug down to tier 2 depths and started connecting the floors.
Where is my hole? Aha! Where is this hole? Ah, there it is. Ha ha ha! Eureka! We have a breakthrough! And now we're cooking.
One thing was very clear in this construction though. I did not want to touch any of the existing conveyor belts. I simply want to funnel everything down and set up a new line of drills. At dawn of day 46, I noticed that I was a bit low on supplies, so I started off the day by going for a quick shopping session.
If you have a question, good sir. Ooh, why did you say so, Willem? I think we're gonna be best friends. You know what? You're my new reg.
As soon as I got back, I began to assemble everything on the second floor, which did take me pretty much all day. It's coming along very slowly, but baby steps, people, baby steps. It was the next morning when I began to disassemble the conveyor belt in reverse, so I started with onyx and worked my way on through in that order because it didn't disturb the drills as much. After moving almost every piece, I switched off the rig towards the end to transport the final 2 pieces. As cautious as I was, I still had to continuously move pieces around all over the place and was trying to ensure that everything was hooked up correctly as I let her rip. Some late upgrades require me to go for some more shopping though. I have much grand plans for this rig and it is being quite costly. On day 48, I finished up the final details though, and then had no other choice but to test it.
Alrighty, so we got our conga line of ores going from least valuable to highest value. We got it set up for the core stone over there, and a pan drop in for every single cut gemstone. If all goes according to plan, everything's gonna perfectly funnel down here and not make a mess, and then go that way. And the plan later is to put a T here and thus extend in this direction a new conveyor belt line for drills that are gonna be set up right here. So don't worry about the fact that this place is empty. But either way, let's go to the tippy top and thus get this machine on rolling. Everything up here is the same. These good drills, I'm gonna bring further down because they can mine in any depth. And I'm gonna swap these out for different drills that we can actually craft later. But without any further ado, let's see if it works. Boop. Pop. Yeah, so it's doing perfectly. Everything is funneling down, well, the funnel, without spilling. So let's have a look downstairs if that's the case. And I got a little perfect chute here to go check. Bada boom. And I'm an idiot. I didn't power the conveyor belts. Hold it. Hold it. Everybody chill. Bellissimo. All right. Bum ba bum bum ba da bum. And now everything down there should be flowing. We have a liftoff, baby. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, I'm so glad. I am so glad. Work efficiency has never been this great. Now, if y'all don't mind me, I got a whole lot of work to do.
By the end of the evening, everything was set up relatively easily. I surprised myself, and everything actually went according to plan. And since everything worked out so fantastically, I went to the shop to buy the Tier 1 drill and harvester design. A little reward. I feel like I deserve it. As I returned on day 49, I started preparing everything that I'd need to make 1 harvester and 4 drills in one go. The ore for it was a little bit tight, but we were just barely able to afford doing this. So with everything packed up and ready to go, I drove up the volcano to the forge that we saw at the beginning. Once I reached the summit, I placed my design onto this here pedestal, dropped the resources into the melting pot, and finally pulled the lever, and presto, the machines were made. After loading them back onto Big Bertha, I noticed that the drills looked eerily similar to the ones that we already have, so I take it that we don't have to touch our existing system, which honestly is a very pleasant surprise. And now that we have these new machines at New Lumbridge, my production will soon have more than doubled considering the number of machines and the depth at which they will be placed. So, on day 50, halfway through our adventure, I started the preliminary process of getting these new items set up. It took me a little while, but eventually, I had the harvester connected to a conveyor belt going from it to the sorters. Now I just had to hook up the drills, so I proceeded to bring a lava connection to the rear of these drills and shoveled some ice underneath them. In sequence, I booted up each one of them. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it ran perfectly. This is the most compact, symmetrical, and beautiful system that I have ever created. The system at this stage is complete, and I am a very happy man. On day 51, I just bought some little knickknacks and some things to brighten up the base, quite literally. So as I returned back home, I started cleaning up stuff and just placed the torches along the cave walls. More improvements were made throughout the day too, including tidying up the passage between the levels and putting in a staircase. Also, a quick side note, I just gotta reiterate how happy I am with this tier 2 setup, as it's perfectly expandable. I can just slap more of these drills to the back whenever I please. Also, now that the passage has been widened here and cleaned up, it allows me to carry down the rest of my stuff from the first floor, like the anvil and the furnace. With that, I'm slowly building up my workstation down here. At day's end, I decided to lock down everything that I deemed unnecessary to be moved anymore. You'd be surprised how often I pick things up by accident. On day 52, I set off to buy some quality of life necessities, such as pallets, some more stairs, and a task board where I can pin my active requisitions. So with all these pieces, in a flash, the workstation is almost complete. The flooring has been placed, the staircase also finalized. Towards the evening, I did search the lands for some tool racks, as that is the last thing I need on my shopping list, so once I found them, I brought them all the way back home and was happy to see that my workstation is fully complete. So for day 53, I decided it's high time to complete the bajillion item requisitions that had been stacking up. And in the middle of this intense crafting session, I realized that a chisel would be very useful to get the exact gemstone weight. I totally forgot that manual tools are still beneficial considering we have the logic saw, but it can't make decimals, so the chisel is going to be a very handy dandy item. Looking at the jewelry that I've been making thus far, I must say that some of my clients have very expensive tastes, but I'm not judging, I'm just here for the money. And since I had been dishing out all of this jewelry, I didn't actually end up having enough gemstones to go around, so some of these orders will have to be put on hold. Towards the evening, I made another lap around the map and handed in all of the completed item requisitions. And so, considering that I've handed in a lot of these on the morning of day 54, just did another lap, gathering all the new orders that spawned in. But of course, something has to go wrong, doesn't it?
What? I thought we were friends. Shut up. Oh, I f***ed up the gold on it. Yep. Oof. Well, that's a shame. What am I gonna do with this now? Like, I can't take it apart for parts. What do you want me to do with this? Take it! Take it! Well, you too then. You know what, Reg? You're uninvited for my birthday party. You know what? I'm actually a bit mad about that. That is a whole lot of wasted materials, but life lessons, people. Back when I worked as a carpenter, my boss in German dialect used to keep saying to me, "Das bloß deine Schuld." And that is a motto that I live by. Amongst the more tedious tasks, I had to search extensively for a 4.5 kilogram core stone nugget to complete this one villager's order. I can't control the result of these RNG ones, so I'm happy when I do manage to complete these, so it's a little bit of a dopamine boost to the brain. On day 55, I had no other choice but to remake the necklace that I had messed up. At least it was worth more than 2,000 scout tokens, so it was definitely worth it. After handing in the remade necklace to William, no longer Reg, I drove to Newglade and bought the tier 3 shop crate. And although considering I do have a lot of core stone for this early on in the game, that is still one tall order. But complaining won't magically reduce the amount, so I better get back to base and start preparing this for construction. As I got into Big Bertha, a light bulb though went off inside my brain. What am I doing? Am I getting ahead of myself? I still need to buy the tier 2 recipes first. So after purchasing all 3 tier 2 recipes, I started loading them onto the truck and noticed that this heavy lava machinery is all made with a high amount of cloutium and core stone. So fingers crossed, we can actually make a few of these. So come midnight, I prepped for one heavy lava harvester as that was all that I could afford. On day 56, I was driving up the windy path of the volcano on my way to the ancient forge, where I inserted the resources and once again pulled the lever, and out came one chunky harvester. What in the frick am I supposed to do with this? After reading its description, I realized that at least this big piece of furniture comes with its benefits. It has a higher yield, the higher lava pressure it gets, and the drilled ice gets transformed into water pressure, so we don't need more ice melters. Oh, don't tell me. I need to buy the big vehicle. No! Well, it is what it is. I'll be back. Ginormous piece of Watch me. I bought this furniture and I'm taking it home. A tiny snag in my plans for sure, but after a bit of a breakdance session, I was off to make some more tokens to eventually purchase this new vehicle that I'm forced to get. Luckily, I realized that I still had 2,800 tokens even after buying a ticket to Mott's Island, and if I remember correctly, the truck only costs 4,200. I then spent the remainder of the day gathering tokens with my greedy, grubby hands, and by the end of the day, I made a total of 5,800 tokens. I think we'll be fine. So logically, on day 57, I drove over to the dealership and bought the juggernaut of all vehicles. This is one hefty beast. On my way to bring it on over to the mainland, I thought of a perfect name to call this new member of our team. If our truck's name is Big Bertha, this hauler's name has to be Huge Betty. And to my disbelief, it wasn't even that slow as I had anticipated, so this is actually a really pleasant surprise. The first thing I did once I got back to the mainland was transfer all of my belongings onto the back of Huge Betty and quickly drove to the volcano to pick up the harvester that we had made. You know, screw being forklift certified, I am crane certified, okay? Let's level up. Once I got back to base with this thing, I came to the astonishing realization that I could only place the harvester with Betty. This meant that Hans would have to be put to work to open up a massive entrance. There's no doubt in my mind that using the lava thaw is the most effective way to clear out the snow, but the thing is, I'm not really good at using it, so I was turning my entrance into Swiss cheese, but as long as it works, it don't really matter. I did spend a portion of day 58 fiddling around with Hans, trying to get the entrance big enough for Betty to reverse into, and somehow I did get Hans to fall into the first floor, which was not what I had in mind, but it was progress nonetheless, I guess. After a few more runs back and forth, I realized that my progress was slowing down, so I decided to go back to the old-fashioned method of using my pickaxe to clear the last bits of the snow that Hans cannot reach. And on my way to retrieve my pickaxe, I realized that the whole system was clogged up due to one of my filters being broken. I had actually run out of spanners and I didn't notice. What a perfect surprise! There were minerals piled up everywhere. This was a colossal mess, so I spent the rest of the day purchasing enough spanners to fill up the auto repair circuits and then unclogged the rig to finally boot it back up. Not so quick though. My PC apparently had other plans. As I was unclogging this clusterfuck of a disaster, my game decided to crash, which is perfect. That's just what I needed. After logging back in, I quickly worked on getting all the remaining ores into the conveyor belts and not on the floor. Once that was all cleaned up, I could finally breathe and get back to work on the little floating pieces of snow that I intended to remove with my pickaxe.
On day 59, I continued this process all throughout the day until I had finished it at about sundown. This is when I could finally put Betty into reverse and just kind of floor it down into the second floor. Now, when it comes to finally placing the harvester that we made, I didn't necessarily care where it got placed. As long as I just got it placed, it's fine. I'll figure out the rest later. And luckily though, I hit the jackpot with my drop-in as it went down in a spot that is actually pretty close to my current setup, so I ain't complaining. It only came at the detriment of destroying my living quarters. On day 60, it became clear to me though that I ought to redirect everything from floor 1 into this new harvester, as that is the only way that I can get ice into it to make water pressure down here. On top of that, I want to funnel all of the ores from the current floor so that everything goes into one singular harvester. This is going to require a massive redesign and restructure. And you already know it is seriously complicated if even I am willing to lose profits by shutting down the whole system to move pieces around. I spent most of the day placing tubes and conveyor belts everywhere and worked towards an absolute masterpiece of a finalized design. I know it looks messy right now, but trust me, my neurons are flying at Mach 5 speed. If that's a good thing, we shall see. And honestly, this reconstruction would have taken half the time if I wouldn't have kept losing my construction hammer, which I need to loosen up the pieces that I locked into place because I didn't think I'd have to move things around anymore. It's just my fault. It's just my fault. It's just my fault. On day 61, thanks to the absolutely terrible design of my first floor, I didn't need to go and buy more tubing since there was more than enough to go around. After recycling everything and using up what I needed, I even kept some spares. The only thing that I needed was some conveyor pieces, so I rushed on over to the shop and purchased what was needed. Once I got back, I spent the rest of the day moving around conveyor belts and tried to get a working system down. All my hard work paid off and led me to finish this build on the morning of day 62.
Okay, so everything's a mess. Let's start with that. Ignore the utter disaster that is my home, okay? What matters is that this works on first try because there's a lot on the line. Because if this doesn't work, then I wasted not only a couple days, but also technically I screwed up my ice production for this, so it better work. In short, as you know, from the tippy top from the lava, it come in. Where my circle is, that is where the switch is to get the system up and running. So let's start from the top. I have temporarily dismantled all the other stuff. Like, actually, this is probably a permanent dismantling. I'm not reassembling this, but either way, it goes here, connects to the level 1 drills that we had. The reason why we still have these here at the top is because we need ice, of which I stocked up a little bit from all the rests that I found amongst all of this humbo mumbo jumbo. And all of it's gonna fall down here into the big hefty harvester. Now, that is simple. The water that it's getting for these conveyor to works is from the harvester itself, as you know. So if I take a jump down here, this is going to basically be the new water. I already have a switch on it, so it should activate right off the rip. And with that water go uppies all the way to the tippy top, supplies that top chain, and also the very compact and neat chain for this, for our tier 2 floor drills, which will just bring everything up and into it as well. Very simple, very straightforward. And with that as well, it's a little bit of a loop-de-loop mess here with a bridge, but yeah, it just goes into a regular system that regroups back with the old sorting that I have not touched at all. So in my brain, this works. If it doesn't, I don't know what to do, but I'm confident that we're gonna figure something out. So let's let this giant machine rip, shall we? And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Okay, I hear stuff. That's a good sign, okay? Right, yeah, okay. I can see the mining machine working. Let's fill it up. Oh. Okay, a little bit of a snag. Don't worry, okay? Nobody panic. Okay, I am being eaten alive. Okay, maybe somebody panic. If not, it's gonna be me. There. Okay. Water! Haha! We have water! I might be being chewed up alive, but we have water. Eureka! Let me just unstuck myself. There we go. Ah, simple. Okay. That's exactly what I wanted to see. It just needed a little bit of a kickstart, but that's what the collected ice was for. I planned ahead. And from what I can see in the distance, stuff is churning. Oh, I think it's working. I think it's working. Okay. Let me just get more ice. Let me just get more ice into it, just to be on the safe side. But technically speaking, everything should be good. There, this is a better point of entry. There you go. Okay. You guys are drilling along at the lowest depth of tier 2 possible, so we're getting the most value out of it. And just look at the ore flow. Everything seems to be working, and I am glad. You know, these we don't need anymore either, because nothing's coming from the top. Boop. Nice. You see that? All in order. You know what? I don't know who is more surprised that this works. Either it's me, Raptor writing the script right now, or the audience. One of the three, but this should not be working in my mind. Sick, I can retire. Yeah, we beat the game. yeah, we beat the game.
All right. See you all next time.
That's all, folks.
After that successful test, I proceeded to clean up the mess that I had made with a joyous pep in my step. In the evening, after all that cleanup was finished, I brought down one last machine that I wanted near to my workstation, which was the gem compressor. And to wrap up the day, I took up some inventory, and this is when I noticed that we're back to over 700 kilograms of core stone, just like we were before I forged the giant harvester. Our production is really ramping up. Wanting to let this system just run on its own for a while on day 63, I decided that this was the perfect opportunity to go get Big Bertha from the harbor. So after a brief jog, we reunited, and so together we drove back to New Lumbridge. As soon as I returned though, I prepared the supplies needed to craft our first tier 2 drill, which is quite pricey at 700 kilograms of core stone and 400 kilograms of cloudium. This better be worth it. I went through the forging process again, and boy oh boy, this is one massive drill. I'm glad that I came prepared and brought Betty this time though, so I thought ahead. My only fear now is possibly being unable to insert this drill inside of my hole. However, my worries were quickly put to rest as soon as I got home, as I simply just flipped around a little bit and bada bing bada boom, it was placed with great ease. Setting it up was also done in a flash. All it needed was a couple of extra tubes and conveyors. This wasn't a problem because I have so much room in this cave to place things that nothing seemed to actually get in the way. On day 64, I walked up to the shops to buy more conveyor belts, and as soon as I got home, connected everything and started it up. It pumps out ore like there's no tomorrow, 3 at a time, and that's because it keeps cycling between the 3 internal drills that it has, so it's kind of like a burst rifle, just instead of damaging people, it damages the environment. But yes, all this means is that we're going to have more core stone in no time, but while we wait, I completed more of these dang item requisitions. These tokens aren't going to make themselves, you know. So on day 65, after an all-nighter of item crafting, I made a trip around the map to hand in all of the products. I'd been handing them in when I realized that in my haste, I had messed up some of my orders, and it ain't cheap when core stone is involved, so my bad. After returning to the facility, I set out with Betty to investigate what these frozen blocks on the side of the road were all about. They seem quite important, and they're called frozen marks, and I realized that I'm going to need Betty when I saw that it has a hook at the top of it, so eventually, and carefully, we loaded this chunk of ice onto the back. This was brought over to the Shattered Outpost on day 66, where they have a melting station. Here we can see it slowly melting away, and once it was all gone, it revealed a tiny metal forged mark that reminded me of a beacon from Skyrim. We can now add this to our crafts and potentially get more performance out of our machines and tools in the future when used. But that project's gonna have to be put on hold, as once I got back home, I noticed that once again, the frost rocks were stacking up near the mouth of the harvester instead of going into it. These are very simple instructions.
I've dabbled with this intersection for so long. No matter what I try, things accumulate here. I need to make one conveyor this way. And that is impossible unless I build this one uppies, which means all this has to go a block to the left, or this and all that a block to the right. And I don't like either of those options.
Now, Difficulties are inevitable, and just like every genius, I decided to avoid them entirely for now and went to build a tier 3 shop, since if I'm going to have to restructure the absolute cluster of an operation that I made, I might as well mix in tier 3 items. I zoomed over to Newglade to make a list of materials that I would need with their weights. Come close to midnight, I had it all prepared and zoomed back on over to build the last piece of real estate in town. There were quite the amount of goodies for purchase here, but I was shocked to see no more drill or harvester recipes to buy. I guess there's no tier 3, the heavies are the maximum you can get and then improved on with the forge marks. The only thing that I did notice was likely a final singular lava drill that we can purchase and the final lava thaw booster, which is actually very key. The next morning, I made a lap around town, and it seemed like the townfolk were insulting my efforts by giving me single nugget requisitions. Oh, I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna bring them the biggest nugget they have ever seen. My first order of business, though, once I got back, was to set up the last lava drill, which was as simple as falling off a log. That was followed up by unclogging the machines again, finally giving Hans the last booster, and then digging the best tier 3 base ramp that I could muster. And although it was quite challenging, I was making notable advances to a nice, neat little entrance. By the end of the day, I did manage to melt the entire bottom floor with my trusty friend Hans, and during this process, I did find a rich gold vein. To my knowledge, these are random, so it's nice to find one. Although I wanted to progress with the tier 3 depth project on day 68, I just had to keep unclogging the harvester all the time, so I felt forced to do something about it. I decided that improvement number 1 would be to make a better lip from the first floor, with that making a better falling order so the ores wouldn't stack with the ones coming from the second floor. The second and most important improvement would be to change the positioning of the conveyor belts to try and get all of them lined up in a way that doesn't disturb the flow and no longer clogs the mouth of the harvester, and that is how I spent the rest of the day, just trying to hone in on that alignment. All those improvements were finished on day 69, and thus I confidently let the machines get back to work.
Oh, look at that. Oh, my whole PC hates me right now, but we are making money. Oh, please don't crash, please don't crash, please don't crash. Yeah, the drills weren't off during all these upgrades. Like, we didn't lose out on any money, which is great. So now everything should be going honky-dory. I mean, just look at that. I even have my own elevator to the top floor now. I don't have to use the stairs anymore. Like, this is an improvement all around.
With this new core stone that was coming in, I was able to forge one lava intake booster. I then quickly forged the tiny thing and slapped it on. That should have improved our lava pressure nicely, and with that the output of all of our machines. On day 70, I had a splendid idea of maximizing profits with minimal effort. That idea was to pop these individual drills one floor down and conveyor belt the nuggets into the existing harvester on floor 2. It seems like every time that I finished one of my improvements, another idea landed in my head. However, the problem in the situation is that I need a better pickaxe to work at the required depth, so that had me purchasing the best pickaxe, shovel, and rake that money could buy. On this trip to the shops, I also made sure to stock up on plenty of tubes and conveyor belts since the new floor would need a whole lot of reworking. With this massive amount of supplies at New Lumbridge now, the digging and building could commence. After a solid session of brain frying, it was slowly getting somewhere. It is far from functional, but I can see this working out in due time. On the morning of day 71, I continued reconfiguring my rig, and at this point had become a regular at the frost tube shop, hauling load after load of supplies. A large portion of those was simply me forgetting the number of things that I needed, so I always had to go back for little bits and pieces. The travel times were a large part of my delays. Thankfully, by sundown, the build was coming together relatively smoothly. All I had to do now was tie it all together and fire it up. So by the dawn of day 72, the conveyor belt system from the 3rd floor was complete, so I hooked up the drills, pointed them in the right direction, and fired it all up.
So, all of the drills that were right here, which were 5 of them, have been placed further down, including one of my ice drills up top. I'm hoping 3 of them suffice for enough ice for the entire system. And so we have this very neat and organized 6 symmetrical drill system, which should work with this final placement. right there. Now, all of these. Yeah, there you go. Yep, every single one is pumping them out, and they're also getting a little bit of ice, so it's fine, I think, if we got rid of the one up top. And this system is very neat. It's not as expandable as I would have loved it to be. Like, if I let's say if I double the amount of these drills, I can't really that easily go all the way that way in the same format, but this will do for now. Plus, I have my elevator system now from tier 3 depth to the main base, so that's good. That's a plus.
I walked along the conveyor line, changing the little hiccups along the way that I spotted. Everything needs to work perfectly if I want to be able to leave this setup alone at some point. My next immediate concern was the gemstones, as placing them in the gem compressor nearly had my PC kill itself over time. So I was keen on installing gem compressors throughout the entire sorting system to avoid these issues. Obviously, I needed to go shopping for the necessary parts, and in this same trip handed in some single nugget orders as the machines were already pumping out very, very large nuggets. Hopefully, better requisitions were on the horizon though, cause this ain't gonna cut it. Speaking of the horizon, the sun was setting, so I hurried with my purchases on back to New Lumbridge. So, on the morning of day 73, I was ready to implement all of my newly purchased goodies, but I ran into some issues. The gem compressor has a lava connection on one side and a logic connection on the other. They don't want to be put in a line. Due to these difficulties that I was presented with, I opted for a dug-out approach for every second one that I placed. Things are going great until they weren't. Although things were lining up, the switches were getting in the way of each other. And for this, the easiest fix was to just place the compressors in a staircase formation. I know it doesn't look like much, but trust me, I spent the better part of the day trying to set this up, and I am confident that it'll work. The next morning, the gem compressors were all hooked up and ready to go, and although the lava connections hindered me from accessing the smelters by a smidge, it's not end of the world. I can still work with this. And the gems that fall into the compressors, well, all this seems to be a messy solution, but I don't think it's nothing that a few more funnels won't fix. I then did another lap around the island to collect all the new item requisitions that were popping up, while also getting the necessary funnels and tool bags. By the evening, once everything was sorted, we reached over 2,000 kilograms of core stone. Now we're cooking! On day 75, I prepared ingots to forge 3 more lava intake boosters in hopes to complete our set. 2 were done rather quickly, but the last one wasn't. I needed to wait for more materials to be generated, so while I waited, I went on over to the dealership to buy the motorbike.
Oh yeah. I already know I'm gonna enjoy this.
The reason that I chose to buy the bike at this point was to do some speedy item deliveries and hopefully spot some fossils along the way, as I hadn't seen any in a good while. I made a valiant attempt to take the bike on Big Bertha's back, but she just wasn't having any of it. So, tediously, I had to make both of them take separate trips back to New Lumbridge. For day 76, enough core stone had accumulated for me to prep the last intake booster, so I took our new vehicle to the forge, where I crafted all 3 boosters. While driving, I noticed that the bike also needed a name, so I dubbed it Fury, as driving it reminded me of playing ATV Off-Road Fury 2 on the PS2 as a kid. But yeah, after all 3 had been smashed together, I rushed back home to set them in place.
Oh, do a flip! Let's go!
Once I got home, they were slapped on, which technically means we're over 100% lava pressure, especially because I inserted a massive shard bar into the pressure tank, and so it started flowing. I could really, truly notice the difference in the speed of our conveyors and drills. Now, we have fantastic drills on level 1, 2, and 3. Pressure is high, conveyors are moving, ores are smelted automatically, and gems are compressed on the dot. I am very proud of myself, considering everything that is going well without much of my input. Now, this means it's time for another session of requisition completion.
Oh, 4.5 weight core stone. Aha! First try!
I even got to do the requisitions that I've been holding off of doing for a while because they're so expensive, but I now have enough materials to complete basically any order that comes across my desk. So, for day 77, I took my bucket of gifts that I had made and dispersed them across the land, making me feel like Santa.
That just never gets old.
Once the last delivery had been made, we were sitting at 14,000 scout tokens. The highest we've ever been at because I keep having to spend them. As I waited for more core stone to build up, Fury and I roamed the land in search of more fossils, and after a successful run, managed to gather 4 more of these, which I handed over to the museum ward. I only needed another 4 to complete the requisition and collect the final prize. But yeah, to end off the day, I made a final lap around town to collect some more item requisitions, as I can now dedicate all of my time and energy to completing these for more tokens. Now, day 78 had something new in store. I prepped some materials and started to make my way up the volcano. I was going to forge another drill, but not just any drill. This one was going to be made with the forge mark embedded inside. Another pull on the magical lever, and thus another chunky machine appeared before me. This one had a maximum speed buff and 2 out of 3 stars for size bonus. Can't wait to hook this thing up and see how it runs. As soon as I got back, I brute forced Betty down to the 2nd floor and set the machine down in its place. Although honestly, using the crane feels like playing with one of those claw machines because no matter what you do, things don't move the way you want them to. But eventually, with tons of persistence and patience, I finally placed it where it needed to go. With this giant drill acting like 3 normal-sized ones and its boost in output, I had essentially over doubled this floor's output. And boy, I am so proud of how things are going. So wanting to keep up with this momentum, I decided to take a stroll through the night to load up on any frozen forge marks that I might encounter. And it didn't take me long to find one on the side of the road. This forge mark was loaded onto Betty at the dawn of day 79, and thus I continued searching, but only found 1 more after that, giving me a total of 2, so I'm guessing they're pretty rare. Once they were loaded up, I went and brought them to the Shattered Outpost, and there, melted them down. It is one of the most satisfying processes in the game, but to the game's credit, a lot of activities in the game is satisfying to the brain. I am always astonished by how much I enjoy myself with this one. The remainder of the day was just spent completing a metric ton of orders, as I haven't let that flex trophy out of my sight just yet. On day 80, we cracked the 20,000 token mark, so feeling more motivated than ever, I completed every single order that came my way. It didn't matter if it was big or small, I was ready to do them all. At sunset, I was looking at a stack of 30,000 tokens, and compared to the trophy, it seems like a far out goal, but I'm pretty sure we got this in the bag if I keep this up. I proceeded to scavenge for bones into the next morning. After depositing my findings, I realized that I was a single Hydrosaur rib short. Finding this bone is going to be like finding a needle in a haystack, so I'm already a bit worried. Luckily, by this time of day, the townsfolk had prepared more orders for me to collect. I'll keep an eye out for that last bone while I collect, complete, and deposit these orders. And from here on out, I'll just call this process doing a lap. I'm going to be doing this a whole lot in the coming days, so this is going to just keep everything nice, sweet, and down to the point. So yes, the next day just revolved around lap looping and attempted fossil finding.
The thing is, if you're looking in their direction, you're not gonna miss them. That's what's weirding me out so much, is like why it's being so difficult. Watch me have like picked it up a long time ago and then just misplaced it and we just can't complete the objective because of it. That is a more likely scenario.
Trust me when I tell you that I searched far and wide, high and low, all day long, but I was unsuccessful in finding that rib. I drove empty-handed into day 83, hoping to come across it eventually. For now, I have decided to satisfy more orders to gather more tokens though. After completing another lap and getting close to the halfway mark, I was determined to make one last effort to find this final bone. It's one bone. It shouldn't be that hard. The entire day of 84, nothing was found. My confidence shot and my hopes for this goal now on the floor. I just went to go do another lap of orders because I gotta keep that up too. The cycle continued into day 85, continuously searching and completing some sprinkled in orders. Day 86, make item, hand an item, look for dead dino. Very simple. We checked every spot noted on a map that we found online, and I mean every single spot, and turned up empty-handed. I was livid. At this point, I wondered if it was even on this plane of existence. As I completed my first lap on day 87, I could only think that I must have picked it up at some point, dropped it, and now it has no more glow to it, so I will likely never find it again. And to make matters worse, All the villagers seem to be uniting against me by giving me orders with very cheap payouts. Our momentum is rapidly fleeting, so besides scraping together what little tokens the villagers were willing to give me, I was running around my base like a headless chicken with my magnet stick in hand, delusionally hoping to find a bone somewhere if I might have misplaced it. But the item requisitions only seem to be getting worse on top of all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me this, and I'll give you my tokens.
Now we're talking. Stanwyck?
You have replaced William. Welcome to the team.
Day 88 started by finishing another 2 laps, which left me with a grand total of 64,000 scout tokens. On the note of sums of money, I totaled up everything that the facility had produced up to this point and established that my net worth at this time was 11.2 million Hydrocoin. Not too bad if I do say so myself. That kind of boosted my confidence a little bit. I then decided it might be interesting to go for a max cash stack, so for day 89 I prepped enough materials to make 2 more heavy lava drills. I loaded all the materials and 2 forge marks that I had previously melted onto Betty and drove as fast as she would take me to the forge. One has terrible speed, but maximum output size, and the other has maximum output size and negative speed. I didn't even know that was possible. Like it must be drilling in reverse. I guess it's better than nothing though. It was tricky once I got back to get them placed, but somehow they both got slotted into this abysmal chaos of my facility and then hooked up quite easily, so that's a plus. At the brink of day 90, I started everything back up. Everything looked good, but we need more. We need more output. We need more money. So I hopped onto Betty and completed a lap while I looked for more frozen forge marks to melt down. Day 91 was legendary, let me tell ya. While we waited for the forge marks to melt, I headed home to complete more orders as I was desperate to get enough tokens in time, which is when I spotted a 3rd forge mark and decided to just gather it up to melt it down for future machines when it finally happened.
No shot. You have got to be kidding me. I passed by this place 50 billion times. I specifically looked here. I must have just been looking at this patch of grass and not over the lip here, I guess. This makes no sense. No, seriously, okay. Cutting the bullshit. I must have checked this singular spot a minimum of 5 times. I am not exaggerating. You're coming with me. Oh, it's time. Oh, I'm so done with this. You know what? I literally just woke up and started to record, and this just made my whole day. My day is made.
I was overjoyed, to say the least, that I had found the final bone for the museum. And did I feel a little bit stupid that I checked this place and never saw this in the slightest? Yeah, a little bit, but the amount of dopamine in my brain at this point made me forget all about that.
Alrighty.
Don't forget to put
Here
them in the
we
box.
are. I can't believe, through sheer coinkydink, that I actually got the final piece of this mess. Here you go. It is done. This absolute abomination, this absolute disaster, this absolute failure of a natural specimen. I'm gonna deal with you in a sec. As I was saying, this thing is complete. I'm not the one that assembled this. It looks a little bit off to me, but either way, I am not the archaeologist here. So, without further ado, 36 out of 36 fossils have been obtained. Now listen here, you bootleg John Hammond. I got something for your ass. I'm gonna rob you for all you're worth with an honest day's work. And I never want to see your sorry, wrinkly ass ever again.
This boost of tokens landed me at a sum of 75k, so we're at about 3/4 of the way there. However, the next thing on my to-do list was to head back to the Shattered Outpost to just melt down this last frozen forge mark that I got. And so, on day 92, considering that I have 3 extra forge marks, I prepped materials to make as many drills as possible. The plan was to forge them on the tippy top of the volcano very quickly, but for some odd reason, it just wouldn't let me forge them. Even after re-logging into the game, it just kept moaning at me and not letting me pull that lever. I don't know what the issue here is, but I'll keep fidgeting around and see if something works. Oh. What? What? Oh. Oh, okay. Because I didn't have anything on there, I got my stuff back. Okay. Oh. I thought it just wasted all my So at least I could get my stuff back. Noted. I was utterly baffled, and after trying some more, I had a brilliant idea. What if the number of drills that I could forge correlates to the number of quarries that I own? It wouldn't make sense, but to be fair, this whole ordeal didn't make any sense. I then proceeded to purchase every single quarry on this entire continent. So, after my grand spending spree, I returned to the forge and retried to forge this drill. But no dice! Something else is wrong, I suppose, and at this point, I have tried every solution that my brain could come up with. I tried having more than enough of each ore, tried to forge it with or without the forge mark, tried changing the recipe, attempted to put the recipe first or second. Nothing. So if anyone has any ideas of what the issue here could be, please leave them down below in the comments. I am begging thee. After relogging on day 93, the forge still just wouldn't budge, no matter the recipe. It's broken, I assumed, so that left me with no other choice but to leave it for now. I then spent the rest of the day completing laps and satisfying my, at this point, recurring customers. At the end of the day, we cracked the 80,000 token mark, and we're well on our way to get that glorified trophy. Day 94 revolved around accumulating as many tokens as possible and to forge 3 regular lava drills which use iron and closium. I hope that the game at least allows me to do that. And to my surprise, the forge had absolutely no problem completing that build. So I scurried on back to base to get Betty, and with that the materials that I had prepared for the heavy lava drills.
Oh, that was sick.
Backwards. Oh, you show off.
I'm getting good. I have no idea what the issue was, but I just hoped that it's fixed by now. Once I arrived with everything, I quickly inserted the materials and pulled the lever. Presto! It works like magic. I guess if anyone else has this issue, try to unclog the forge's brain by doing a regular drill first. That's all I got. Worked for me. After inspecting my products, I was happy to see that it was almost a perfect heavy drill. Things were once again looking up for ya boy. And so, having crafted more drills, I left the forge with 3 normal ones, one of which having used a forge mark, and 2 upgraded heavy lava drills. These were brought back to base at about nightfall. So on day 95, I rushed to and from the shops with some supplies to set them up. First, I got the 3 regular lava drills operational, and as you can probably imagine, it is getting quite cramped down here. Next, I slowly backed Betty in and lowered on 2 heavy lava drills, which were also set up and put to work. One was quite easy to place and manage. The other one, not so much, not a simple task, which is why I couldn't get it quite all working before midnight. So first on day 96, after snatching up some last minute deals, I returned to base, connected everything, and then cranked her to 100. So close. No! Eureka! Snow saves the day once again. Seriously, this thing is drilling out of a singular tube of snow, redirecting all its ore perfectly to 2 shovels of snow. And I don't even want to get started with what happened with this one, but it works, so I'm not going to touch it. And so, I was then finally allowed to reshift my focus back to gathering tokens by fulfilling these many requisitions. And I was moving some serious weight at a serious speed. I was a better oiled machine than the ones getting me the materials out of the ground. This meticulous focus continued into day 97, and at about noon, I decided to check another goal off of my list by purchasing every vehicle from the dealership. So I rushed on over to the harbor with Betty when I realized I had forgotten to buy a ferry ticket. So I zoomed back to collect the much needed ticket, and then, with that same speed, rushed back to the harbor to board the ship and sail across the seas. Once I got to the dealership, I realized that I messed up. Again, and it's only my fault.
the 2 vehicles that I still have to buy are with normal hydro coin, not with tokens. Now I just wasted even more tokens on a faulty fucking trip. If it's not one thing, it's another. So I'm gonna circle back, get the coins, and I'll see y'all back here.
So I went on back, got paid, bought the ticket, swam on back, and then finally ticked another box off of my goal list. On day 98, I returned to the mainland for my so-called business cruise, and this time, it wasn't as slow as before. This time, I had Betty carry the vehicles back to base unhindered and with some serious pace. By sunset, I had every single vehicle in my possession lined up nicely. This is a fine selection of automobiles, if I do say so myself. Day 99 was the final call for all requisitions. It's now or never, everybody. I did my final round and thus reached over 100,000 SCO tokens. Now I could finally buy that fancy flex trophy, but every treasure needs to be stored somewhere safe, so I'm going to build a castle. I quickly rushed to the shops, made a hefty purchase of specific building blocks, and returned for some construction. So, going into day 100, as I'm building this masterpiece, I would like to use this time to thank all of my patrons and YouTube channel members. You absolute legends. Your support means the world and genuinely helps keep the channel running. Whether you're here for the jokes, the absurdities, or just want to see what I screw up next, thank you for being part of this wild ride. And voila! A castle that would have the king absolutely writhing in envy. There has never been an architectural masterpiece such as this. Thereafter, I sold my accumulated wealth for a pretty penny, giving me a cash stack of almost 20 million coins. Considering the max cash stack in this game is 21.47 million, I consider that pretty darn close, but obviously not quite there. I then went to do something that I had wanted to do since the very beginning of the video. I purchased the most expensive trophy in the game with my scout tokens, and with that and a joyful pep in my step, I drove back and placed it into my ginormous castle.
Well, my lovelies, this adventure went by faster than I expected. Honestly, I'm incredibly proud of what we built here at New Lumbridge, if I do say so myself. We've completed a lot of the things that we set out to do, and now every fort needs its treasures, of course. So, here is where we will place for all eternity the Volcalidus Peak Flex Trophy and our max cash stack. If I had one. It's close enough in my books. You know, the castle's kind of scuffed. The money stack is almost there. So, 50-50. Let me know in the comments how well you think I did. Either way, thank you so very much for watching, and I will be seeing you very soon in the next one. So take care now. Bye-bye.